Chapter 361. Breakthrough to the Free Immortal Realm 9 Layers. Guan gazed upon that mysterious and colossal entity, feeling a deep sense of wariness in his heart. He could sense that this being was immensely powerful, far surpassing the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, likely having reached the 9th level of the Immortal Path. Thanks to the protection of the lifespan barrier, the other side did not detect Guan's presence and quickly left the area. The Tao spiritual energy within the universe was in turmoil, expanding its influence increasingly vast. It did not spread out in the manner of a vortex but expanded irregularly, making it impossible for passing beings to trace its origin, which was quite bizarre. While Guan was wary of them, those hidden beings were also wary of this region. The universe space within the silent destruction domain was filled with a tense atmosphere. As inherited memories continued to delve deeper, Guan closed his eyes, immersed in them, perceiving the mysteries of the eternal infinite skill. Time moved swiftly. Another ancient hour passed, and Guan had completely mastered the intricacies of the eternal infinite skill. Guan couldn't help but marvel at the power of evolutionary cultivation. Even though he possessed the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han, mastering their cultivation techniques and divine skills still required cultivation because simply remembering was not enough. One needed to transform both body and soul. Evolutionary cultivation could accomplish this, and even compress the time to about an ancient hour, which for his level, was almost the same as direct mastery. Inheriting cultivation techniques cost another 4 million years of lifespan. Guan looked at his remaining lifespan of 9 billion and over 20 million years, feeling quite composed. An idea suddenly struck him. He needn't only enhance his own divine skills and ultimate techniques to a higher realm. He could also elevate Xianxia's, Long Zhan's and Lu Han's proudest divine skills to the returning to the truth realm, potentially increasing all aspects of his strength and possibly consuming less lifespan. Having thought this, Guan began to act. He brought up his attribute panel and started investing lifespan. In the end, he elevated 7 divine bodies: Fighting Will, Heavenly Dragon Reincarnation Dharma Aspect, and Destruction Dao Seal to the returning to the truth realm, consuming a total of 90 million years of lifespan. These 4 transformations each had their prowess, involving different forces of rules. While 7 divine bodies was slightly weaker, Xianxia's Fighting Will was surprisingly on par with Long Zhan's Heavenly Dragon Reincarnation Dharma Aspect and Lu Han's Destruction Dao Seal, which came as a surprise to Guan. In the attribute panel, Fighting Will was not categorized as a divine skill, spell, or ultimate technique but created its separate entry known as Daoist intent. Xianxia lived only 143 years but could fathom such transformations. His talent was certainly terrifying. Unfortunately, he had encountered the Black Profound Emperor. Perhaps this was why the Black Profound Emperor sought him out. Of course, the fact that Xianxia had the ability to seize lifespan from a young age did not prove his talent was stronger than that of Long Zhan or Lu Han. Another 8 million years of lifespan was consumed by the lifespan barrier, so Guan turned his focus onto his cultivation level. Cultivation was the paramount concern. Let's try with 100 million years of lifespan to test the waters. Guan remembered that when he was assaulting the divine thought true immortal realm, it required 300,000 years for each tribulation crossing, but he wondered how much it would need this time. You performed Qi absorption cultivation for 400,000 years, forcibly assaulting the free immortal realm with the great accomplishment of the eternal infinite skill, started the tribulation, but failed to withstand the heavenly Tao punishing immortal 9 severe array, tribulation failed. You performed Qi absorption cultivation for 800,000 years, forcibly assaulting the free immortal realm with the great accomplishment of the eternal infinite skill, started the tribulation, but failed to withstand the heavenly Tao punishing immortal 9 severe array, tribulation failed. 400,000 years per tribulation crossing. Fortunately, the difficulty had only increased by 100,000 years. The enhancements to his physique and cultivation technique had worked. According to the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han, the gap between the free immortal and divine thought true immortal was enormous. A first-level free immortal could easily crush a 9th-level divine thought true immortal. This was also why Xianxia dominated the great heavenly spirit land and intimidated the silent destruction domain. Guan guessed that, had he not been enhanced, he would need more than 800,000 years to wait for the next breakthrough after failing the tribulation. Just as Guan was pondering, multiple prompts started to flash rapidly. You perform qi absorption cultivation for 24,800,000 years, forcibly assaulting the free immortal realm with the great accomplishment of the eternal infinite skill, started the tribulation, endured the heavenly Tao punishing immortal 9 severe array. Tribulation succeeded, your cultivation level advanced to the first layer of the free immortal realm. You perform qi absorption cultivation for 31 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the second layer of the free immortal realm. You perform qi absorption cultivation for 39 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the third layer of the free immortal realm. You perform qi absorption cultivation for 85 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the seventh layer of the free immortal realm. You perform qi absorption cultivation for 100 million years, your cultivation level advanced to the eighth layer of the free immortal realm. Actually succeeded. Guan's face lit up with joy. He had been prepared to lose 100 million years without gain, but as long as the breakthrough consumed less than 300 million years of lifespan he could accept it. Once reaching the free immortal realm, each level required millions of years of lifespan to advance. Guan didn't find this excessive as evolutionary cultivation naturally required more lifespan than real life. Moreover, once attaining the free immortal realm, increasing cultivation was as much about understanding the rules as it was about qi absorption cultivation. Long Zhan had encountered several free immortals who had struggled to break through for tens of millions of years. Could it be that the previous reincarnation evolution had played a part? Guan did not dwell on the thought, his mood cheerful as he continued to invest lifespan, spending another 20 million years to elevate his cultivation level to the ninth layer of the free immortal realm. Tao's spiritual energy began to surge around him, stirring upheaval throughout the universe once more. This disturbance was far greater than the previous one. In the great heavenly spirit land within the Immortal dynasty, beneath the dazzling starry sky stood a majestic peak with a vast and sprawling square at the summit, dotted with stone pillars emitting golden light. The lord of the Immortal dynasty, Xianxia Emperor, was meditating on a white jade dais. He suddenly opened his eyes, looked up and furrowed his brow. It's a disturbance from the silent destruction domain. Xianxia Emperor murmured to himself, his eyes filled with concern. The Immortal dynasty and Holy Court refrained from waging all-out war partly because the silent destruction domain served as a check, fearing mutual destruction would provide an opportunity for the heavenly demon. The disturbance from the silent destruction domain had already affected the cosmic spiritual energy beyond the outer heaven, and this influence continued to expand, possibly reaching the great heavenly spirit land. Even someone as powerful as Xianxia Emperor could not determine what this signal meant. He recalled a similar disturbance near the silent destruction domain in the universe area beyond the outer heaven years ago, but it was nowhere near the scale of the current disturbance. Could these two incidents be related? He knitted his brow, lost in thought. At the same time, on the other side of the great heavenly spirit land, in the Holy Land where the Holy Court resided, several figures flew out and swiftly reached the outer light layer, looking towards the distance. It's a disturbance from the silent destruction domain. Could someone be breaking through? This disturbance is too exaggerated, isn't it? It's hard to say. It could also be the heavenly demon plotting something. We should still be careful and not forget the person from beyond the outer heaven who stole treasures from the Holy Court. Could it be related to the Immortal dynasty? They could very well be colluding with the heavenly demon. The great cultivators of the Holy Court discussed heatedly, most of them bearing serious expressions, occasionally glancing towards the direction of the Immortal dynasty. As time passed, the great sects within the great heavenly spirit land also became aware of the anomaly beyond the outer heaven, and more great cultivators flew out of the great heavenly spirit land, reaching the outer light layer. Boom! Within the lifespan barrier, Guan's aura rose sharply, his entire body glowing with the brilliance of the eternal infinite skill. He had officially stepped into the free immortal realm, becoming a free immortal. Upon reaching the free immortal realm, the golden core within his body began to transform. When he had reached the carefree immortal realm previously, his golden core could accumulate the force of heaven and earth rules, forming his own path. Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma molded the immortal soul of Wondrous Dharma. Tao Void Mysterious Immortal solidified the path within the golden core, and Divine Thought True Immortal allowed his soul to temper out divine thought. The golden core and soul continuously alternated in elevation, achieving a certain balance. This time was his golden core's turn. His golden core was transforming into another existence, within which the Tao bloated and annihilated, condensing anew his own path. Guan knew what his golden core was about to transform into. Tao Seed. Owning the memory of Longzhan, Guan knew what realm lay beyond the 9 layers of the immortal path. The key to reaching that realm lay in the Tao Seed. The Tao Seed would condense Tao fruit, and once it bore fruit one could reach a whole new level. The free immortal realm was the process of nurturing a Tao Seed. Once the golden core completely evolved into a Tao Seed, Guan's cultivation continued to rise, and his Tao Seed grew rapidly. When he reached the 9th layer of the free immortal realm, his Tao Seed would be in its most perfect state. The birth of the Tao Seed brought many benefits, enhancing his mana, physique and soul. If the Tao Seed was indestructible, the person would not die. Even if his flesh and soul were annihilated, the Tao Seed could regenerate flesh and soul. This was because the soul's origin had already merged into the Tao Seed. The Tao Seed was more flexible than the flesh and soul and could merge with the laws of the Great Tao without being repelled. In other words, the Tao Seed was like a nascent Tao, making it easier to exist within the universe. This is the true meaning of being free. Upon reaching this realm, Guan could better sense the subtle intentions of the universe. An entirely different force from the rules of the Great Tao was restraining everything. Enveloped in the transformations of the free immortal realm, Guan was utterly captivated. As he closed his eyes, another pair of eyes appeared in the distant darkness, spying on the void and soon vanished. Shadowy figures swept past meteor clusters, like illusions fleeting in an instant. The moon set and the sun rose. Sunlight swept across the Taizong continent, dispersing the darkness. A new day dawned, and the disciples of the Third Medicine Valley began their usual training, a magnificent sight. Wuzhu came early in the morning to visit Guan but did not see him. He did not leave but stood at a distance watching the Medicine Valley disciples train. After the disciples had finished their training, an Exen approached Wuzhu, asking if he had come looking for Guan. Wuzhu nodded, and an Exen informed him that their master had gone out the day before and would likely return today. Wuzhu then decided to wait. He walked over to the Go area and watched others play. He preferred watching Chinese chess over Go. Hearing some discuss the romance of the 3 kingdoms, he couldn't help but join the conversation. The argument was whether Liu Bei was truly virtuous, engaging in an endless debate with a great cultivator from the sect, red-faced with anger. Just then the transmission array platform lit up and Guan walked out. Chapter 362. The 419-year-old free immortal of the 9 layers realm returning to Third Medicine Valley, Guan's face blossomed into a smile. In just one night he had transformed from the 9th layer of the divine thought true immortal realm to the 9th layer of the free immortal realm, a groundbreaking change of strength. Had it not already been daylight, he would have wanted to continue breaking through. The breakthrough in cultivation level consumed nearly 50 million years of his lifespan barrier, leaving Guan with over 67 million years of life remaining. He felt there was still hope for a successful breakthrough. After reaching the free immortal realm, his perception of the great heavenly spirit land became clearer. He could confirm that both the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court were harboring free immortals. Once the free immortals go to war, it could very well involve the entire world. If he could transcend the free immortal realm, Guan would feel even more at ease. Guan stepped down from the transmission array platform and looked up. In the vast cosmos above he saw a gray river. Not being within the cosmos, he couldn't reach it by flying upwards. He had to traverse it through the Tao rules. The River of Destiny. The place where Lu Han perished. Guan just watched from a distance with no immediate intention to step into the River of Destiny. His gaze then shifted to Wuzhu, who rarely took the trouble to visit him, so he naturally went to greet him. Yu Yingying was holding a rabbit as she saw the figure of Guan. She subconsciously looked over and was taken aback for a moment, rubbing her eyes with one hand. Guan was dressed the same as the day before with no change in his makeup or hairstyle, yet Yu Yingying felt a significant change in him. This change was indescribable for her. Looking at Guan made her want to approach him, but after a longer gaze she felt an urge to submit. It was a complex emotion difficult for her to describe. Not only her but other disciples also couldn't help but take a second look at Guan after seeing him. Guan arrived behind Wuzhu just in time to hear him listing the benevolent deeds of Liu Bei. Wuzhu seemed to sense something and turned his head. Seeing Guan, the anger on his face instantly vanished. You're finally back. Come on, let's go have a drink. Wuju immediately pulled Gu An's arm and walked to the side. Guan naturally wouldn't refuse. He called out for an Xian to prepare wine and dishes. The two settled in Gu An's loft, sitting opposite each other. Guan, I've reached the unification realm. Wuju excitedly declared, his face brimming with pride. Guan was amused. You're in the unification realm? I couldn't even sense it until I approached you from behind. He had suppressed his aura to nascent soul realm levels without completely hiding it. This showed that Wuju really got carried away easily. Guan wondered if this would cause him trouble in the future. Really? That's two. Guan feigned surprise, his eyes widening. Wuju became even more smug at his expression, boastfully asking, a unification realm at 421 years old. Do you understand what kind of strength that represents? Guan opened his mouth, then found himself at a loss for words. He knew very well what strength the unification realm cultivator at 421 years old represented. Isn't it just the unification realm? What he wanted to ask Wuju was whether he knew what the 9th layer of the free immortal realm at 419 years old constituted in terms of power. An Xian who had come upstairs to deliver the wine and dishes found Wuju's statement amusing. Showing off in front of my master? She placed the wine and dishes on the table, then left. Wuju had been speaking loudly on purpose and wondered why an Xian didn't react. Guan noticed this and chided an Xian mentally for not maintaining the composure of an actor, too quick to relax. Never thought you'd make it this far. Although I've always felt you were extraordinary, it turns out I still underestimated you, Guan said with feeling, immediately drawing Wuju's attention back. Wuju laughed and said, if it weren't for your constant encouragement in the past, I couldn't have reached this point today. You too can comprehend the path. It's not impossible for you to reach the unification realm in the future. Guan shook his head. That's impossible. How could it be? You have to believe in yourself. Yeah, it's because of belief there's no chance. Guan then asked, you should be able to compare with An Hao and my brother Li now, right? Upon hearing this, Wuju's eyes shone. I'm not sure, but I've always aimed to match them. Sadly, I don't know how strong they really are. I'll challenge them once I surpass their realms. Goodness. You like to fight across realms as well? Guan was happy, but he was quite satisfied with Wuju's mentality. One can't be arrogant and one mustn't act rashly. Even the strongest can be vanquished. The two began to talk about the future, mainly about Wuju's future. Guan was extremely supportive, hitting all the right notes for Wuju. Third Medicine Valley was harmonious and lively, and the Supreme Sect was just the same. Everyone was unaware of the changes outside the heavens. At the moment, the layer of light outside the heavens gathered many great cultivators, with the least of their realms being heaven and earth flying immortal, all gazing at the silent destruction domain. Fu Xianxia and Bai Zia from Mortal World Peak had also arrived, accompanied by more than a dozen heaven and earth flying immortals. The relationship between the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court is really tense, Bai Zia couldn't help but mutter. Immortal spirits from the Immortal Dynasty and cultivators from the Holy Court stood on opposite sides, the farthest apart, and the tension between them was palpable to all factions. Fu Xianxia looked into the distance and said, I hope this phenomenon allows both sides to temporarily set aside their disputes. Bai Zia looked up and commented with a sigh, the great heavenly spirit land might be strong, but compared to the silent destruction domain, it's still too insignificant. If not for Xingtian, heavenly demons would have trampled the great heavenly spirit land long ago. Fu Xianxia turned to him and asked, you've been to the silent destruction domain, is it really all heavenly demons there? How could it be? The so-called heavenly demons are just our name for them. The silent destruction domain does have a race of heavenly demons, but we consider all the beings born there as heavenly demons. The domain is boundless and I don't know just how vast it is. Perhaps there are other great heavens and earths hidden there? Bai Zia spoke wistfully as if recalling something, his eyes growing dim. While the two discussed the silent destruction domain, other factions were doing the same, sharing their experiences within the domain. Meanwhile, Guan, the instigator behind the phenomena, was in the valley enjoying wine and good times with a friend. This continued until late at night when Guan began to act again. The gap between the free immortal realm and higher realms was immense, a significant leap in stages. Fearing that 600 million years of life might not suffice, he wanted to surreptitiously gather 10 billion years worth. It's the last time. This time, once he gathered 10 billion years, he absolutely wouldn't steal again. The act itself made him feel ashamed. To avoid drawing connections to himself, he first went to Mortal World Peak to steal medicinal herbs, making it appear as if they too were victims. To his surprise, he sensed a divine immortal of wondrous dharma cultivating in the main peak, encircled by the chi fortune of Mortal World Peak, likely an elder returned from outer heaven. Guan only stole from the main peak's herbs and then quickly departed, ultimately alerting Mortal World Peak. By dawn, the divine immortal of wondrous dharma stood in front of a pile of harvested mature medicinal herbs, silent for a long time. Only when the sunlight bathed him did he take a deep breath. "This world remains unfathomably deep," he sincerely remarked. 10 days later, Guan successfully accumulated a lifespan of 10 billion years. Next was the breakthrough. Guan looked towards outer heaven. The proximity of the silent destruction domain had many powerful beings roaming it, which meant he couldn't rashly choose a place for his breakthrough. He certainly couldn't delve deep into the silent destruction domain. What if an existence like the Black Profound Emperor was waiting? Autumn winds whistled through the forest where Guan sat on a rock, gazing at the sky through the gaps in the leaves. The Blood Prison Great Saint lay beside him, while an Exan practiced the stepping path of age's step. Her movements were smoother than before, each step full of grace, catching even the Blood Prison Great Saint's eyes. The Blood Prison Great Saint also wanted to learn, but simply watching an Exan couldn't unravel the technique for him. He guessed that to learn such divine skills, personal guidance from the master was necessary. He didn't ask, understanding his current form was unsuited for divine skill cultivation. If he behaved well, he would eventually learn once 1,000 years passed. Guan's eyes turned to the sea. His covert action had still caused disturbances, with the factions from which he had stolen unable to find the true culprit, resorting to seeking help from the Holy Court. The Holy Court gathered the information and dispatched many of its cultivators for investigation. Guan heard some saying the affair might be related to the phenomena outside the heavens, even discussing the heavenly demons' conspiracies. It made him laugh and cry. The initial guesses were accurate, but later they veered off course. Nevertheless, he wasn't worried about being exposed. After all, he would no longer steal after this breakthrough, resuming his usual state to watch the world's changes with a smile. The only downside to a peaceful world is that with stable order, it's hard for those at the bottom to climb, and breaking the rules would easily invite trouble. The resources of the great heavenly spirit land had been divided among various factions. Any land nurturing heaven and earth treasures was always near a sect, with very few ownerless treasures left. Either they were guarded by a sect or a great demon was watching them. Of course, compared to the turmoil of unrest, Guan preferred peace. Peace may have less opportunity, but it's not as dangerous. If not for the Holy Court establishing order, the Seven Stars spirit realm would have trampled the supreme sect before Guan could rise. It was the world's rules that kept the Seven Stars spirit realm from acting recklessly, their vile acts only able to be performed in the shadows. Guan's divine thought suddenly fell on Zhou Xian of Moonfall Divine Lake. In the vast world, only a handful of people he had physically seen could reach the peak longevity of 9,999 years before the Nirvana realm. And how the evil Emperor Yangjian, the Blood Prison Great Saint Ji Xiaoyu and Zhu Xi. Among them, the evil Emperor, the sect hierarch of the Ephemeris sect, was trapped under the Immortal King crown and crushed by Guan. There surely were other individuals with the maximum longevity of 9,999 years in this world. They just hadn't appeared before Guan yet. Perception could not be used for lifespan detection. Guan saw Zhu Xi cultivating, her cultivation level the same as the last time he saw her, with no hint of change. What heights will the Tai Chu swallowing yuan body reach here? Guan was filled with curiosity. Within the great heavenly spirit land, ancient treasure bodies were rare. Above them were Daoist bodies and higher still were holy bodies. The Tai Chu swallowing yuan body was comparable to the primordial karmic body, exceeding even the holy bodies. In terms of physique alone, Zhu Xi was much stronger than in Hao and Yangjian. Of course, physique was just one aspect of talent. Like in Hao, his intellect was equally remarkable. 9,999 years is the limit of longevity for the human race beneath the Nirvana realm, but it doesn't necessarily mean the limit of their gifts. Chapter 363. Peeking into the future. Master, I can't train anymore. An Exan approached Guan, speaking feebly. Guan came back to his senses, nodded slightly, then stood up and took an Xian and blood prison great saint away. Master, do you think the Immortal dynasty will fight with the Holy Court? Everyone outside is saying that great changes are coming, an Xian asked curiously as she walked beside Guan. The ancestor of void illusions blessed all beings, causing the status of the Immortal dynasty in the hearts of all beings to soar. Now, in the eyes of most beings, the Immortal dynasty was even stronger than the Holy Court. Once the Immortal dynasty defeated the Holy Court, a new era would begin. Perhaps, Guan answered, but it has nothing to do with us. The Taizong continent can't participate in such a struggle yet. Looking at the lights in outer heaven, Guan suddenly felt that he delayed the conflict between the Immortal dynasty and the Holy Court. Now the entire great heavenly spirit land feared the silent destruction domain and dared not rashly go to war. Guan suddenly felt very great, thinking that his breakthrough could help maintain peace in the world. Perhaps such peace could only last a few decades, 100 or 200 years, but mortal spirits could only live that long. And Xian continued to inquire. She was very curious about who was stronger between the Immortal dynasty and the Holy Court. Guan didn't make a judgment, his answers were equivocal, but this didn't hinder her imagination. Seeing that her master didn't want to speak more, she started chatting with the blood prison great saint. In the following days, Guan's divine thought explored the silent destruction domain daily, looking for the right time to break through. The commotion he had previously caused was too great, making powerful beings linger near the silent destruction domain. Not only was the great heavenly spirit land tense, but the forces within the silent destruction domain were also nervous, thinking that the great heavenly spirit land was going to invade them. As autumn passed and winter came, the year's flying snow arrived on schedule. In the early winter, Guan took an Xian to Mortal World Peak, and an Xian walked to one side to cultivate on her own. It wasn't long before Zhou Xian came to visit Guan. Master, there have been thieves on Mortal World Peak lately, Zhou Xian said with a solemn expression. Guan raised an eyebrow, asking in surprise, what kind of thieves? Were there any casualties? No, but many garden areas had medicinal herbs harvested, including our Mortal World Peak's medicine garden. Fortunately, only harvesting was done and there was no damage. Even the Supreme Elder of the main peak couldn't find the real culprit. Also, I heard that there were strange phenomena beyond outer heaven recently. Do you think it could be the work of the heavenly demon? Zhou Xian said anxiously. The higher you stand, the more dangers you see. With external threats from the heavenly demons and internal tensions between the Immortal dynasty and the Holy Court at knife point, how could he not think more? Moreover, a heavenly demon was hidden beneath Mortal World Peak. Guan frowned and pretended to calculate with his fingers. Zhou Xian seemed to think of something, adding, moreover, other sects have encountered similar situations to Mortal World Peak, with medicinal herbs mysteriously harvested without anyone knowing who the perpetrator is. Guan asked, how many times has this happened on Mortal World Peak? Just once. Then let's wait and see, it might just be a false alarm. Perhaps. Zhou Xian felt it made sense and then began to speak about the situation of Dingtian Peak. Not long after Zhou Xian left, and Guan began to enjoy some leisure time, not in a rush to harvest herbs since the recent situation was tense. A lifespan of 10 billion years should be enough for him to break through. After reading for a while, Guan's gaze turned towards outer heaven. He saw a great battle unfolding within the silent destruction domain. The combatants were divine thought true immortals, and they were not beings from the great heavenly spirit land. Beings born in the silent destruction domain differed distinctly from those of the great heavenly spirit land in terms of aura, so the heavenly demon was easy to identify. Guan watched the battle, curious to see how the divine thought true immortals of the silent destruction domain compared to the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor in strength. The true immortals fighting resembled the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor in the simulation, each strike deadly, showing no mercy, clearly bearing deep hatred. After watching for a while, Guan felt they were not as strong as the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. It was unlikely that even both together could defeat the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. No wonder the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor could travel from the Yin-Yang domain and even penetrate the Holy Court and leave triumphantly. Guan speculated that the Reincarnation Path Emperor and the Holy Court had some causal connection. Otherwise, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor wouldn't have been able to steal the Reincarnation Path Emperor's soul jade from within the Holy Court. He waited until he took an Exen back to the Supreme Sect, and those two divine thought true immortals were still undecided in their battle. As night fell, Guan read in the attic, a stove nearby with a pot of wine brewing on it. This atmosphere in the cold winter felt very warm. The door was pushed open and Zhou Xian walked straight in. "Why didn't you knock?" Guan didn't look up as he responded, already having an idea in his mind. That was to capture Xiantiani, lock him in a small black room, and make him write books every day. What great potential for writing, cultivating immortality was wasting him. Zhou Xiaoyu closed the door and then sat down at the table, starting by saying, "Your temperament has changed somewhat recently. Are you cultivating some miracle skill?" Guan glanced at her and said, "Because I love to read, books nourish the spirit." Zhou Xiaoyu smiled and looked at Green Hero Travelogue, then said, "Such books can nourish the spirit? It's a good thing your cultivation level isn't high, otherwise, you'd surely become a disaster for the world." Guan put away Green Hero Travelogue, coughed and asked, "Is there something you need?" Since Zhou Xiaoyu absorbed the soul jade brought by the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, her cultivation level had been rising faster and faster, and now she was at the 9th layer of the Void Crossing realm. Be aware she was only 263 years old. "I'm planning to leave for a few years and will leave tomorrow morning," Zhou Xiaoyu said as she looked around the room. "What are you going to do?" "Breakthrough." "Another breakthrough? What realm are you at now?" Seeing Gu Anna's shocked expression, the corners of Zhou Xiaoyu's mouth lifted, and with a soft voice she said, "Void Crossing Realm 9th layer, ready to break through to the Unification Realm." Guan's eyes widened, muttering, "To catch up to Wu Ju. Who told you not to cultivate diligently? Our gap will only widen further," Zhou Xiaoyu said with a faint grievance. She had thought Gu Anna's change in temperament was due to cultivation, only to be disappointed. Hearing this, Guan argued, "I am still nascent soul realm, a nascent soul realm at 400 years old. How can I not be considered a genius? I was just born in the wrong era. If I had lived a few hundred years earlier, the Supreme Sect would have made much of me." Zhou Xiaoyu shook her head, laughing, and said, "Have you ever thought that the reason you have the achievements you do today is because the Supreme Sect has grown stronger? When comparing talent, you should compare with those around you, not just yourself." Guan grinned awkwardly, unable to reply. Seeing his expression, Zhou Xiaoyu's heart softened, and she didn't pursue the topic further but instead asked, "Is there anything you need? I can bring it back for you." "That won't be necessary, I don't need anything." The two began to chat leisurely, discussing whatever came to mind, neither feeling awkward. This feeling was like that of an old married couple. Ahem. What am I thinking about? Guan cursed in his mind, then started to probe Zhou Xiaoyu's karma. After reaching the 9th layer of the free immortal realm, his karmic and life path cultivation became even stronger. He could see the development of Zhou Xiaoyu's life path for the next 1,000 years. Although Zhou Xiaoyu's fate had many variables, there were also overlaps with others. That was, she would be involved in the Great War between the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court. In the future, the whole world, including the Supreme Sect, would get swept up in this conflict. The Supreme Sect supported the Holy Court because Sword Venerable Fudao had joined the Holy Court, and the Holy Court continuously tried to tie the Supreme Sect to their chariot. Guan could see the future through the beings of the Supreme Sect, and he had no thoughts of preventing or changing it. Rather, he felt a sense of detachment. At first glance, all beings lived according to a heavenly scripted drama, but he could foresee everything and had the power to change it, a feeling wonderfully sublime. After chatting for an hour, Zhou Xiaoyu finally left. Guan then stood up and went to the stove, lifting the wine jug to pour himself some wine. Zhou Xiaoyu was preparing for a breakthrough and he was also ready for his own. It was truly a double celebration. Tonight deserved celebration. The next morning, Zhou Xiaoyu left 3rd Medicine Valley. After joining his disciples for training, Guan also left on his own. He stayed at Mystic Valley for a while before departing. Using his ultimate art to turn his body into illusion, he concealed his form and combining the Cosmic Path divine skill to hide his own aura and karma, he directly crossed through the light layer of outer heaven, unnoticed by any great cultivator, and flew towards the silent destruction domain. This time, Guan headed in another direction. Soon he entered the silent destruction domain and landed in a nebula. He could sense beings roving in all directions, those two divine thought true immortals still locked in battle. He couldn't manage that much anymore. He had to break through as soon as possible. Settling into a meditative pose, he activated his lifespan barrier, then accessed his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, for 19/1004-613-224. Physique, mixed origin refining void body, cultivation level, free immortal realm 9th layer. A lifespan of 10 billion years should be enough for a successful breakthrough, right? Guan suddenly felt worried. He had decided this time to not enhance his divine skills or cultivation techniques any further but to directly attempt the breakthrough. After all, there's no limit to enhancement in various aspects, and he was more concerned with ascending realms. There was no need to wait any longer. Never mind. A direct breakthrough. If 10 billion years of lifespan isn't enough, then he'll just have to wait more. Guan's expression hardened, his gaze lingering on his cultivation level section. Invest 1 billion years of lifespan. You undergo energy absorption cultivation for 2 million years, using the eternal infinite skills great accomplishment to forcefully attack the Tao fruit realm, begin tribulation crossing. You couldn't endure the heavenly Tao Tai divine element grand tribulation. The tribulation crossing failed. You undergo energy absorption cultivation for 4 million years, using the eternal infinite skills great accomplishment to forcefully attack the Tao fruit realm, begin tribulation crossing. You couldn't endure the heavenly Tao Tai divine element grand tribulation. The tribulation crossing failed. Well, 2 million years for one tribulation crossing? That's a huge gap. Guan's eyelids twitched, but thinking of Long Zhan's tremendous strength after his successful breakthrough, he felt slightly relieved. What are 2 million years? He had a 10 billion year lifespan and could afford the gamble. One prompt after another jumped out. Guan deliberately only looked at the length of the prompts. No changes at all. Until 1 billion years were exhausted, he still hadn't broken through. Guan took a deep breath and invested another billion years of lifespan. Chapter 364. Breakthrough to the perfect completion of the Daoist repository free immortal realm. The second 100 million years. Guan made his decision and stared intently at the prompts. One after another the prompts emerged, all of them failures. Facing tribulation every 2 million years, he could only attempt it 50 times in 100 million years. The experience of failing 200 or 300 times before had made Guan increasingly tense. In the end they were all failures. 200 million years of lifespan, 100 failures. Guan remembered the heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation. Although he hadn't enhanced his cultivation technique or divine skills, he felt all aspects of himself were already sufficiently powerful. This heavenly Tao Tai divine origin tribulation really has some substance. Guan reflected emotionally, then once again committed 100 million years of lifespan. Failure. Guan saw that the lifespan barrier had barely consumed any lifespan and felt as if the barrier was silently mocking him. Another 100 million years. It should be a success now, right? Guan gritted his teeth, no longer able to maintain his composure. The prompt came out again faster than before. Another failure. Guan had now squandered 400 million years of his lifespan, failing 200 times. He couldn't help but think of Long Zhan. He didn't know how many years of lifespan it had taken Long Zhan to succeed in his breakthrough. He had inherited Long Zhan's memories, but he couldn't see Long Zhan's life-stealing prompts, nor could he hear Long Zhan's inner monologue at that time. He could only experience Long Zhan's life through his own eyes, which was how he was certain he himself was the true incarnation. He wouldn't get lost because of it. Long Zhan had never revealed his life-stealing ability to anyone, nor did he ever talk about his lifespan, so Guan didn't know how many years of lifespan Long Zhan had. However, recalling Long Zhan's memories, he realized that Long Zhan did indeed feel frustrated in the early stages of charging into the Tao fruit realm. Presumably Long Zhan had also failed many times. Guan took another deep breath, cast aside all distractions and continued with the breakthrough. He still had 600 million years of lifespan left. It would be fine as long as he succeeded. After all, the lifespan is just a number which can be slowly accumulated. Besides, he was more fortunate than Long Zhan, who only unlocked the life-stealing ability in the late stages of his life, while he was just 419 years old. There were endless possibilities in life. As long as he didn't act as arrogantly as Long Zhan had. Another 100 million years. Guan decided in his heart, and as soon as all prompts had settled, he immediately invested another 100 million years of lifespan. He didn't overlook his attribute panel, which still showed 400 million years of lifespan. Another failure. Guan had to stop. He needed to calm down. 2 more tries. If he still wasn't successful after 200 million years, he would have to stop this time. After all, attempting to break through would consume lifespan in the lifespan barrier. The last breakthrough consumed 50 million years of lifespan, and this time it would definitely double. Here we go again. 100 million years. Guan's eyes turned icy cold, but they soon shifted. You have practiced qi absorption cultivation for 48 million years, forcefully charged into the Tao fruit realm with the great accomplishment of eternal infinite skill, and began tribulation crossing. You have endured the heavenly Dao Tai divine origin tribulation and succeeded, stepping into the Tao fruit realm. Your cultivation level has broken through to the early stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. You have practiced qi absorption cultivation for 85 million years, and your cultivation level has improved to the mid-stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. You have practiced qi absorption cultivation for 100 million years and your cultivation level has improved. Breakthrough success. The division of minor cultivation levels was no longer 9 layers but was now early and middle stages. It seems that the Tao fruit realm is a major realm, comparable to major stages like the mortal realm and the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Taoist storage-free immortal. This was the realm that Long Zhan had reached. Just when he reached this realm, he was executed by the Annihilation God Emperor. Tao's spiritual energy began to surge towards Guan, and he saw the lifespan numbers on the lifespan barrier start to jump quickly. Guan still had 300 million years of lifespan and he continued to spend. One prompt after another kept jumping out, and this time he invested slowly, no longer splurging 100 million years at a time. The late stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. The completion of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. Stop. Just 2 minor realms cost Guan 120 million years of lifespan. He had 180 million years of lifespan left. The lifespan barrier shouldn't dry him out completely, would it? Guan's mood was a bit apprehensive. If really pushed to the limit, he could only cancel the lifespan barrier. He certainly couldn't just wait for death. As vast amounts of Tao spiritual energy entered his body, there was another upheaval in the silent destruction domain. Not only Tao spiritual energy but even the Tao rules of the universe were in upheaval. Almost instantly, those beings who were fighting or exploring in the area were scared into immediate retreat. This upheaval far exceeded the disturbance Guan had made during his last breakthrough. Even true immortals with divine thoughts were frightened into running away. Guan soon closed his eyes, immersing himself in the metamorphosis of his being. His Tao seed began to absorb Tao spiritual energy. Even Tao rules integrated into his body with cause and effect, destiny rules in the majority followed by soul and reincarnation rules. Although reincarnation rules have always existed, they were not as perfected as his previous lives' mythology portrayed. The reincarnation rules absorb souls, then let them reincarnate anew. This process is elusive and unstoppable. Guan focused on his Tao seed, which continued to store Tao unique to himself. The path of a cultivator is similar to that of Tao rules, yet different. It's more like a special form of mana. Its execution is also similar to divine skills. Once the Tao seed blossoms into Tao fruit, Guan would be able to fight using his own Tao, entering a higher level of combat with even richer methods. The Taoist storage realm would nurture the first life-bound great divine power. Life-bound great divine powers cannot be passed on to others, only to be exercised by oneself. As Guan contemplated his first life-bound great divine power, he also thought about his immortal path supreme treasure, wondering if he could combine them. That would be even better. He enjoyed writing books, so decided to create a pen. The life-bound great divine power would have to be related to the pen. He quickly had an idea, and as his thoughts flowed, the rate at which Tao spiritual energy and Tao rules powers entered his body accelerated. The influence caused by this also expanded rapidly, soon alarming the great heavenly spirit land. The great cultivators guarding the outer heaven light layer were all startled, standing up one after another. Here it comes again, this time even stronger than before. What exactly is this commotion? Why are even the spiritual energy and rules of the universe in uproar? Unable to capture the source of the anomaly. Everyone be careful. This surely has to do with the heavenly demon. Trouble has piled up one after the other. Could it be the fabled epical tribulation? While the great cultivators were discussing, 2 figures appeared above them, unnoticed by anyone. These were 2 free immortals, one from the immortal dynasty, the other from the holy court. The free immortal from the Immortal dynasty was known as the Ancient Immortal Emperor. The Holy Court's free immortal was addressed as Saint Ancestor. The Ancient Immortal Emperor had youthful features with white hair, wearing a white robe, his whole being gleamed with white Tao light, looking out of place amidst the cosmic stars. Is this a breakthrough or a formation being set up? The Ancient Immortal Emperor asked with a slight furrow in his brows. The Saint Ancestor, dressed in dark Tao robes with black and white hair fluttering slightly, emitted a very strong sense of oppression. His eyes also peered into the depths of the cosmos. It doesn't seem to be either, it's more like some Tao rules are affecting the universe, Saint Ancestor said with a complex tone. Both free immortals lapsed into silence. After a long time, Saint Ancestor looked towards the Ancient Immortal Emperor. You wouldn't interfere in the disputes of the younger generations, would you? The Ancient Immortal Emperor turned to look at him. As long as you don't break our agreement, I naturally won't either. At those words, the Saint Ancestor showed a smile and nodded. Let the younger ones fight. Comprehending Tao is what we should be doing. If the heavenly demon really attacks and the great heavenly spirit land faces the threat of destruction, that's when we'll step in. The Ancient Immortal Emperor had no objections. He turned to glance at the great heavenly spirit land with a meaningful look in his eyes. How many lifetimes does Xianxia still have? The Ancient Immortal Emperor asked. Saint Ancestor shook his head. I have no idea. In the early years he ceased to trust me and began contemplating the heavenly Tao, setting himself on a solitary and strong path. The Ancient Immortal Emperor fell silent. No more questions asked. His gaze returned to the silent destruction domain. Boom. Gu An's Tao seed completely solidified into a Tao fruit, officially achieving the Taoist storage realm. At the same time his Tao fruit manifested Tao patterns, the form of his life-bound great divine power. Guan named his self-created life-bound great divine power as the longevity true words, a divine power primarily based on cause and effect, fate, deciding the life, death and destiny of beings with words. There was a profound mystery of laws following speech. Guan continued the charge into the mid-stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. He opened his eyes and looked toward the attribute panel. Seeing he had 130 million years of lifespan left, his heart somewhat relieved. From this perspective, the lifespan barrier would not exhaust all his lifespan. Time moved swiftly. An ancient hour later his cultivation level had reached the late stage of the Taoist storage-free immortal realm. Just one more minor realm to go. The mana of the late stage of Taoist storage-free immortal far exceeded the early stage in both quantity and quality, incomparable to the early stage. An unprecedented sense of power made Guan extremely gratified. He even felt as if the universe couldn't confine him, that he could easily leap out of it. He restrained himself. He felt that terrifying existences were wandering outside the cosmos. Perhaps the Annihilation God Emperor, Black Profound Emperor were waiting for him. He looked into the distance. His divine thought turned invisible, probing far away. Traversing within the silent destruction domain, his divine thought spied many powerful beings. The silent destruction domain still hosted quite a few true immortals and free immortals, though they were very scattered, equivalent to a realm as large as the great heavenly spirit land hardly housing a single free immortal. Crossing vast distances he saw another great heaven and earth. He didn't linger, continuing onward. Over the following period he encountered 3 other great heaven and earths, all enveloped by the silent destruction domain. As his divine thought neared its limit, he quickly retracted it and concentrated on breaking through. The nearest great heaven and earth to the great heavenly spirit land was extremely distant. It would take true immortals years just to travel there, passing through many areas of spatial distortion along the way, which cannot be crossed by mere flight. Guan's focus returned to his body, observing his own Tao fruit. He had an intuition that once the Tao fruit bloomed, a new realm would open up. He looked forward to that day. At that moment, Guan seemed to sense something and looked up. In the deep darkness, a pair of gigantic eyes appeared, the same eyes he had seen during his previous breakthrough. Unexpectedly they had appeared again. They were larger than the great heavenly spirit land eyeballs, showing how immense those eyes truly were. Guan fixed his gaze on these giant eyes, wishing to see through them. Chapter 365. Mysterious Reincarnation. Fate-determining pen. Guan compared his memory with the eyes before him and determined they were not the eyes of the Black Profound Emperor. As for whether they were the eyes of the Annihilation God Emperor, he couldn't decide. Long Zhan had never actually seen the true body of the Annihilation God Emperor and was pinched to death by a hand that the Annihilation God Emperor had reached out. For the time being he could not see through the cultivation level of this pair of huge eyes, but they indeed gave people an uneasy and oppressive feeling. Relying on the lifespan barrier, Guan wasn't afraid of being detected by the other party. He had originally thought that the eyes would disappear after watching for a while, but that was not the case. He suddenly saw two figures flying out from the midst of those giant eyes, and they swept past above Guan at an extremely fast speed, heading towards the great heavenly spirit land. Although they passed above Guan, they were actually very distant from him. Guan turned his head to look, his eyebrows furrowing and a worried expression in his eyes. He could sense that these two figures were just from the free immortal realm, but free immortals could easily obliterate the lives in the great heavenly spirit land. He still needed to make a breakthrough and didn't want to act rashly. Moreover, those giant eyes were still there. If he made a move, would he expose himself? Guan saw that free immortals from both the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court had appeared and could only hope that they would be able to stop this mysterious enemy. However, the moment those two figures that emerged from the giant eyes reached the edge of the silent destruction domain, they suddenly disappeared. Guan keenly caught that they had entered into the reincarnation rules, and then they entered the light layer of outer heaven in a manner incomprehensible to cultivators before their presence completely vanished. During the entire process, even those two free immortals were unable to detect them. Is this reincarnation? Guan turned his head back and saw the pair of giant eyes slowly disappearing into the darkness as if they had never appeared. Forget it, first make a breakthrough. Guan raised his right hand, using his powerful mana to condense the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure he desired. Free immortals could create Immortal Path Supreme Treasures. Naturally, it was even easier for free immortals in a higher realm. While his cultivation level rose continuously, Guan quickly shaped the form of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, then infused his own Tao into it, forming a restriction structure that stabilized the Dharma treasure. Time continued to move on. After a little half an ancient hour had passed, Guan finally reached the perfect realm of the free immortals. At this moment he felt a great sense of power, as if he could reach to the heavens and pierce through the earth. His right hand was still shaping the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, divine light shining upon his face, and the golden patterns on his forehead gleamed, making his face appear even more majestic. He seemed to be beholding a piece of heaven and earth, his gaze profound. He glanced at the attribute panel and saw he still had 70 million years of lifespan. He did not rush to lift the lifespan barrier but continued to fashion the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. With the breakthrough completed, the rate at which the lifespan barrier consumed his lifespan abruptly decreased. The turmoil in the silent destruction domain also began to slow, bringing relief to the creatures hiding all around. It wasn't just the creatures of the great heavenly spirit land who were afraid. The heavenly demons in the silent destruction domain also trembled, as there were tales of calamity everywhere, which is the creatures' worry about the unknown. Faced with unknown dangers, it was easy for them to associate these fears with the heavenly will and calamity. Waiting for the Tao spiritual energy's turbulence to subside and Tao rules surges to cease, the silent destruction domain sank into deathly silence, extremely oppressive. Another 2 ancient hours passed. The Immortal Path Supreme Treasure in Gu Ana's hand finally took shape, but to become a true Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, one last step was required: to infuse it with his soul's essence. The Immortal Path Supreme Treasure was not just a powerful Dharma treasure but also unique. The reason it could endure eternally was that the essence of the free immortal's power maintained this characteristic. Guan suddenly felt a very special force manifesting in the cosmos, a force similar to that in the layer of light outside of heaven. His Immortal Path Supreme Treasure seemed to want to be recognized by this force, yearning for it to be branded upon itself. Could this be the heavenly Tao rules? Guan was secretly alarmed. The heavenly Tao rules always seemed more threatening to him than the Tao rules, mainly because the heavenly Tao rules were too perfect, almost as if they had a will of their own. No. He couldn't let the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure make contact with the heavenly Tao rules. Guan forcibly suppressed the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure in his hand. After a good while, the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure no longer had the desire to approach the heavenly Tao rules. The divine light dissipated. A white brush with black bristles appeared in his hand, looking quite ordinary. Golden characters gradually emerged on the shaft of the brush. The fate-determining pen. Guan's mouth curved upward, very pleased with himself. He still had over 60 million years of lifespan. This breakthrough had been perilous, but fortunately he had succeeded. He stood up and disappeared on the spot in an instant. With a single step he arrived at the edges of Mystic Valley. Following that, he stepped out of the woods into a world where snow fluttered all around. The snow melted rapidly wherever he went. He stopped moving, concealing the aura of his Tao fruit before continuing on his way. Snowflakes fell on him, and his figure gradually was obscured, as if returning to the mundane. 30 minutes later, Guan returned to the third Medicine Valley. He stepped down from the transmission array platform and then headed towards the chess-playing area. This day, Nine-Finger Divine Lord was once again trouncing the less skilled. His opponent was still Xianxia. Xianxia held the romance of the Three Kingdoms in one hand and a chess piece in the other, his eyebrows tightly furrowed, indecisive about his move. There were more than a dozen people surrounding them, including Medicine Valley disciples and great cultivators from the Supreme Sect, all of whom were discussing in low voices. Guan approached them, playing with the fate-determining pen in his hand. Yu Yingying nudged closer, asking curiously, "Did you just buy that brush?" This brush was larger than ordinary, the size of a flute, which piqued Yu Yingying's curiosity even more. "Yeah, bought it this morning from an old senior. He said it's an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure," Guan replied with a smile. Upon hearing this, Yu Yingying rolled her eyes with disbelief, asking, "Since it's an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, how many spirit stones did it cost you?" 10 top-grade spirit stones, pretty expensive, right? Heh. Yu Yingying's gaze was like one looking at a fool, the scorn clear in her laughter. Guan extended the fate-determining pen towards her, saying, 100 top-grade spirit stones, I'll sell it to you, taking a little loss. Yu Yingying slapped his hand away with a huff, retorting, "I'm not as foolish as you, I won't buy it. But if you gift it to me I could consider it." Quite the character, wanting something for nothing. Guan rolled his eyes at Yu Yingying, then continued his walk towards Nine-Finger Divine Lord and the others. Yu Yingying followed, eyeing Guan closely. She had sensed changes in Guan's temperament multiple times. She always felt that Guan was hiding a secret. Could this guy really have taken Sword Venerable Fudao as his teacher? Guan made his way through the crowd to stand behind Xianxia, with Yu Yingying following close behind. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, sitting opposite, lifted his gaze towards Guan, also noticing the pen in his hand, and smiled. "That's a decent-looking pen you have there, may I take a look?" Guan twirled the fate-determining pen in his hand and said, 100 top-grade spirit stones, I'll sell it to you. This might actually be an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. An Immortal Path Supreme Treasure? Nine-Finger Divine Lord found this amusing, having just overheard Guan's conversation with Yu Yingying and initially thought Guan was simply teasing her. He did not expect the kid actually believed it. Pretending to be serious, he looked at the fate-determining pen and said, "Oh? Really seems like it." Guan's expression immediately became awkward. Did he recognize it? No, he would have to pat him on the shoulder tonight and use the Great Imprisoned Soul Immortal technique to erase this memory. Chapter 366. Heavenly Demon Turbulence. Nine-Finger Divine Lord wasn't sure what Guan was thinking. Seeing the change in Guan's expression, he feared the young man might actually believe it, so he said, "I was just kidding. With your cultivation level, if it really were an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, you would be reduced to ashes upon contact." Guan, upon hearing this, relaxed inwardly, but his face contorted as if he couldn't bear to accept this fact. He looked down. Xianxia had already fallen into a dead end and was struggling in vain. "Let me do it." Guan patted Xianxia on the shoulder and said. Xianxia took a deep breath and then stood up. Nine-Finger Divine Lord began to pick up pieces. Picking up the black pieces, he stared at Guan with a smile. "My chess skills have improved. You need to be careful this time." Guan sat down, twirling the fate-determining pen in his hand, and said, "In chess I cannot lose." Yu Yingying, standing by, had a peculiar look on her face. For some reason she felt Guan's statement was very imposing. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord made the first move and the chess game began. The spectators were engrossed in watching, and Xianxia also wanted to learn from Guan's moves. Confident, Nine-Finger Divine Lord played quickly, not using his usual tactic of wearing down the old-timers. Half an ancient hour later, Guan stood up. Under the admiring gaze of the onlookers he left, followed quickly by Yu Yingying. Xianxia looked at the chessboard, his face showing admiration. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, however, had a dark expression, staring intently at the chessboard. For some reason he felt the gap between him and Guan widening, and he couldn't understand why. Guan was planning to go see Longqing, but Yu Yingying was following him. He could feel that Yu Yingying sensed his change, but he wasn't panicked. Now in the great heavenly spirit land, no one could see through his cultivation level. Even if his demeanor had changed drastically, he was still in the nascent soul realm, so neither Nine-Finger Divine Lord nor Xianxia paid attention to his change. The two started chatting casually. Guan brought up the Star Sea congregations. Xian Tianyi had already returned to the Supreme Sect, and Hao and Liya had also left the Star Sea congregations. Although there was still cooperation between the Supreme Sect and the Star Sea congregations, the latter was rarely mentioned within the Supreme Sect. Yu Yingying came from the Star Sea congregations, but since coming to the Supreme Sect she had never gone back. In the past, Guan was wary her heavenly demon identity would cause trouble, but now it didn't matter. The silent destruction domain was full of heavenly demons, and Yu Yingying's karma was not as significant as Longqing's. "Do you want to cultivate?" Guan suddenly asked. The reason Yu Yingying couldn't break through was due to the suppression from her heavenly demon karma. Her past life might have been afraid of being discovered, so her reincarnation couldn't break through to a higher realm. With Gu An's current capabilities he could erase the karmic restrictions within her. Yu Yingying glanced at Guan and said, "Of course I want to, but my identity is special, I cannot cultivate. What if I could help you?" When Yu Yingying heard this, her eyes filled with depth. She shook her head and said, "No need, I will just live out this life honestly and reincarnate sooner. I don't want to become a disaster." After hearing this, Guan fell into silence, no longer speaking. "Why don't you ask me why I think I am a disaster?" Yu Yingying said discontentedly. "This guy is quite good at talking to others, so why is it always awkward with her?" Guan turned his head to look at her, asking, "Is there a need to ask?" This rhetorical question annoyed Yu Yingying so much that she lunged at him, arms flailing. The two playfully scuffled all the way to a forest where the grass was covered in snow. Longqing was practicing his fist technique in the snow. Longqing, 82 years old, looked very young and robust. Each punch he threw carried great force. Seeing Guan and Yu Yingying arrive, Longqing revealed a smile and greeted them. Before he was 4 years old, an Xian had taken care of him, and after that it was Yu Yingying who raised him. In his heart, Yu Yingying was like a mother to him, whom he respected deeply, and Guan even felt that in his heart, Yu Yingying held the highest esteem. "Master Godmother, how is this set of fist techniques?" Longqing said, then began throwing punches. Guan and Yu Yingying stood side by side, watching his technique. The whistling of his robes swishing filled the forest. Yu Yingying watched Longqing's form, her face filled with pride. In her heart, Longqing was also her child. Since Longqing's arrival, she was no longer melancholic and lived every day fully, looking forward to the day Longqing would make a name for himself. Guan, on the other hand, compared Longqing with others of his age such as Yang Jian. In terms of physical strength, Longqing was a notch above, but his reaction speed was slower than Yang Jian's, perhaps related to cultivation level. For Longqing to have such strength without spiritual power was already remarkable. After Longqing finished demonstrating his fist technique, he turned around and approached Guan and Yu Yingying, raising his fist. "I feel like I can already spar with those in the nascent soul realm, Master. How about I spar with you?" Seeing his spirited appearance, Guan couldn't help but laugh. Yu Yingying glared at Longqing. "Don't be disrespectful. Are you challenging your master? Is it because I haven't hit you for a long while and you've forgotten my teachings?" Hearing this, Longqing quickly explained, "It's just a spar, stopping as soon as contact is made. Mainly because there are no other cultivators in the nascent soul realm in the Medicine Valley, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to stir up trouble in the inner sect. It's fine, come on." Guan smiled. Hearing this made Longqing beam, and he quickly thanked him. Yu Yingying looked at Guan nervously, saying, "This kid doesn't know his own strength, you need to be careful." Guan shrugged. "Please, I was once a Golden List genius." The Golden List and Celestial List established by the Supreme Sect were still authoritative. Each generation of Golden List geniuses attracted geniuses from all over the continent to compete, although Guan never participated again. Hearing this, Yu Yingying immediately stepped aside. Long Qing stood about 10 paces away warming up. He was very excited. He had long wanted to test Gu An's capabilities. In the Third Medicine Valley, there had always been a legend that Guan was formidable. Although he couldn't compare to Immortal Path great cultivators like the Nine-Finger Divine Lord or Xianxia, in his own realm, Guan was undoubtedly strong. Guan held the fate-determining pen waving Long Qing over. Long Qing immediately advanced, lunging toward Guan in one swift step. So fast. Yu Yingying couldn't keep up with Long Qing's speed, and her pupils dilated dramatically. Long Qing threw a punch like a sea dragon emerging from the abyss, with an explosive sonic boom. Guan reached out with his hand using the fate-determining pen to block Long Qing's fist so it couldn't reach his chest. Long Qing's face changed dramatically. His right arm couldn't push any further. At that moment he felt Gu An's formidable presence, as unshakable as a mountain. His biggest reliance was his physical strength, and when his strength was far inferior to his opponent's, how could he not panic? Gu An's mouth curved into a smile, his right hand holding the fate-determining pen suddenly lifted, lifting Long Qing into the mid-air. He then swiftly raised his leg and kicked. Bang! Long Qing's chest was struck. His eyes bulged, his consciousness briefly blank. Everything happened very quickly, and throughout the process, Yu Yingying didn't see how Guan had made his move. She only saw Long Qing lunging at Guan then being kicked away. By the time she reacted, Long Qing had crashed into a large tree, shaking the accumulated snow off the branches, nearly burying him. Yu Yingying glared at Guan and said, "Why did you hit so hard?" With that she quickly ran toward Long Qing. Guan, feeling helpless, thought to himself, "You were worried I'd get hurt by him earlier, so why do you get to play the good person now?" With Yu Yingying's help, Long Qing sat up. He opened his eyes, looking ahead at Guan. For some reason he suddenly felt awe. Gu An's figure in his eyes seemed invincible. Even his second master, Xianxia, couldn't evoke this feeling in him. "You still need more practice, Qinger. I'm waiting for your next challenge." Gu An's laughter reached Long Qing's ears, pulling him out of his reverent mood. He took a deep breath and nodded vigorously, his arrogance completely dissipated. The winter snow continued to fall. As Long Qing dwelled on his defeat, the great cultivators from outer heaven were deeply worried. With the cessation of the anomalies in the silent destruction domain, the heavenly demons could no longer hold back and began to approach the great heavenly spirit land. They speculated that the disturbances in the silent destruction domain were caused by the great heavenly spirit land, while the great heavenly spirit land suspected they were plotting something. In the days that followed, more and more heavenly demons flew out of the silent destruction domain, reaching the cosmic region near the great heavenly spirit land, confronting the great cultivators on the outer layer of light, clearly demarcated. Time quickly advanced to the end of the year. On this day, Guan was sparring with Tian Yao, Tianqing and Tian Bai in the outer world cave. The three demons attacked him together. Although they couldn't gain the upper hand, each was agile and their spells were impressive. Guan, holding the fate-determining pen, easily blocked and dodged their every spell. He was secretly pleased. Although the three demons were always in the Nianchu cave and outer world cave, their strength had been steadily improving. Any one of them could easily defeat Long Qing alone. Together they could even withstand the unification realm. The strongest, Tian Yao, had already reached the 7th level of the void-crossing realm. Apart from her exceptional talent, this was also due to Gu An's investment in elixirs. Tian Yao stopped and said, "Let's stop here for today." Tianqing and Tian Bai followed suit, panting and sweating, their foreheads and hair damp. They looked at Guan with adoration, immediately rushing to him, each hugging an arm, and began to praise how amazing their master was. Guan was already accustomed to their actions. These were the demons he had raised, there was no helping it, he had to indulge them. Tian Yao approached Guan and said, "Master, lately I have been feeling restless. Can you help me take a look?" Guan asked in surprise, "How should I check?" Tian Yao raised her hands, grasping the front of her robe, preparing to disrobe. "Stop, don't joke around. Tell me more about your feelings," Guan quickly said. He suspected these three demons were plotting something against him. Tian Yao pouted, then talked about her recent feelings. During cultivation, her chi blood was easily agitated, making it difficult for her to calm down and cultivate. She even felt something calling her, which made her uneasy. After listening, Guan looked up, his pupils reflecting a sun, within which a phoenix was hidden. As the heavenly demons approached in large numbers, the 7 suns outside were also disturbed, the mysterious creatures within each awakened, watching the heavenly demons ready for battle. Chapter 367. I want to become an immortal. I want to establish the heavenly court. Heavenly Phoenix Mountain had always been associated with legends of the phoenix, and Tian Yao's original form was a special bird, harboring a mysterious flame within her body, which led Guan to speculate about her connection with the legendary phoenix. Master, what are you looking at? Tian Yao asked nervously. Tianqing and Tianbai looked up at the sky and saw nothing, which made them anxious. Could there be something invisible to them that had infiltrated the outer world cave? Gu An's gaze shifted to Tian Yao. He saw the causal links related to the phoenix on her, which while faint were indeed there, proving that Tian Yao was a descendant of the phoenix. He was not afraid of the phoenix coming after them because the causal connection was too weak. Guan had been unable to detect it even in the divine thought true immortal realm before, indicating that Tian Yao was separated from the phoenix by a vast expanse of time. That phoenix was just a carefree primordial immortal in terms of cultivation. Guan spoke, "Do not worry, I was just looking at your ancestor. The reason for your unease is because your ancestor is restless and it's affecting you through your bloodline." Ancestor? With both her parents deceased, Tian Yao had long regarded Guan as her only support. Hearing now of the existence of an ancestor, how could she remain indifferent? She opened her mouth but eventually fell silent. Curious, Tianqing asked, "Master, who is her ancestor and what is their cultivation level?" Tianbai also looked at Guan, her large eyes filled with anticipation. Guan counterasked, "Do you still remember the legend of Heavenly Phoenix Mountain?" At this remark, Tian Yao's expression changed. Anticipation, nervousness, resentment, various emotions flashed through her eyes. For this moment she seemed unlike her usual naive and romantic self. Could the miss be a descendant of the phoenix? Tianbai gasped, eyes wide. Guan smiled and nodded, saying, "However, the bloodline has been diluted over who knows how many generations, and the descendants of that phoenix are beyond count." He wasn't joking. Following the causal thread of the phoenix, he saw the myriad causalities throughout the world related to it, with countless descendants like Tian Yao, even the ones in the sea. After hearing these words, Tian Yao seemed to shed a burden, visibly relieved, and a smile appeared on her face. Guan looked at her and asked with a smile, "Were you afraid just now?" Tian Yao nodded, "I don't want any ancestor. I just want to be with you, Master. When I was imprisoned by the Heaven Phoenix Demon Mother, when I was hunted, no ancestor showed up." Knowing about the existence of an ancestor, her heart was more filled with worry and fear. She was afraid that Guan might send her to that ancestor. Guan moved forward, rubbed her head and laughed. "What are you thinking? How could I possibly abandon you? Even if the phoenix came for you, I wouldn't agree. I've raised you for so many years. How could it be for nothing?" Hearing this, Tian Yao's smile brightened. In reality, if she wanted to leave, Guan wouldn't stop her. Now he was powerful enough not to fear exposing the outer world cave. But he feared that saying he was willing to let Tian Yao go would instead make her anxious. Tianqing and Tianbai didn't think too much. They were more curious about how powerful the phoenix was. "Don't ask anymore. The phoenix is definitely powerful. Be careful or it might invade your dreams and devour you." Guan hummed, frightening the two, and they dared not ask further questions. It wasn't until noon that Guan left. He went to the North Sea Mountain where, as the mountain god, he met with Sage Xianmiao. Sage Xianmiao had grown accustomed to a life away from worldly affairs, spending his days tending flowers and herbs, content and at peace, occasionally discussing the paths with passing cultivators, a life he found pleasant enough. When Guan, transformed into a small mountain god figure, approached him, he was no longer as constrained as he had been hundreds of years ago. He stood up and bowed. Guan sat on the eaves and asked, "Have you encountered any confusion in your recent cultivation?" Though the lifespan offerings from the mountain god temple weren't much, Sage Xianmiao's sincerity touched him, so he was willing to give guidance on cultivation. Sage Xianmiao shook his head and smiled, "Not at the moment." He looked up at the mountain god on the eaves, hesitated for a moment and asked, "In your view, do the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court qualify as immortals?" This question he had long wanted to ask but feared offending. The methods by which the founder of the Immortal dynasty bestowed blessings on all beings had shocked him, overturning his imagination. In his view, not even a mountain god could achieve that. Now that he heard the Immortal dynasty and Holy Court were about to go to war, it left him with complex feelings. How could immortals quarrel over power and profit like mortals? If the Immortal dynasty and Holy Court were not truly immortals but merely powerful beings, why should humans be stronger than immortals? Various confusions took root in Sage Xianmiao's mind, making him even more eager for answers. Guan, legs crossed, looked down at Sage Xianmiao. His eyes, hidden beneath the mask, were so profound as he asked, "What do you think an immortal should be like?" "Like you, protecting the common folk without being swayed by worldly interests." "If that's the case, why ask a question to which you already know the answer?" Sage Xianmiao frowned, unsure how to express himself. Guan asked, "Do you think they are stronger than me, making you unsure of who the true immortal is?" Sage Xianmiao nodded, watching Guan nervously, fearful of offending the mountain god. "Have you considered what it means to cultivate with me? If you are so fixated on immortals, why not think about becoming one yourself?" Faced with the mountain god's inquiry, Sage Xianmiao's eyes widened, and he asked in astonishment, "How could I possibly become an immortal? Your confusion is the confusion of the entire world. What you see might not be correct. The world is waiting for the true immortal to appear. Why couldn't you be that immortal?" Guan said meaningfully. In fact, he was bluffing, wanting to keep Sage Xianmiao focused on cultivation. Over the years, whenever someone came by, Sage Xianmiao would zealously preach about the mountain god's power and compassion, leading to more and more people calling mentally for the mountain god's help when in distress. Though Guan paid no attention, those people's hopes formed a source of power similar to chi fortune, which he called desire power. Perhaps the true path for an immortal required walking the way of desire power, to truly feel the suffering of all beings. However, Guan's pursuit wasn't immortality, he sought longevity. If Sage Xianmiao so desired to be an immortal, Guan wouldn't mind nurturing him to become a true immortal. To become an immortal, the most crucial aspect is the ability to save the common folk. Simply having a good heart isn't enough. After listening to Guan, Sage Xianmiao fell silent, his heartbeat accelerating. Guan leaped down from the eaves, walked out of the courtyard and went to pick medicinal herbs, with Sage Xianmiao hurriedly following. Can someone like me really become an immortal?" Sage Xianmiao asked cautiously. Without turning his head, Guan replied, "Immortality isn't about high status. With the right intention it can be achieved." Sage Xianmiao's expression changed, deeply moved by these words. After a long time, the two returned to the courtyard. Guan was about to leave when Sage Xianmiao suddenly looked up at him on the eaves and said, "Mountain god, I figured it out. I want to become an immortal. I want to establish the heavenly court." Guan stopped walking, turned his head to look at him and asked in surprise, "The heavenly court? That's the celestial authority from Journey to the West. In the book, the celestial beings fight demons and control the weather for the sake of the common folk. Although the heavenly court in the story has its flaws, at least they care about the common folk." Sage Xianmiao spoke earnestly, and by the end his facial expression turned determined, his eyes gleaming brightly. Guan smiled and said nothing more, then disappeared from the eaves. Sage Xianmiao, filled with grand ambitions, sat cross-legged, deciding to cultivate diligently from now on, not to disappoint the mountain god's faith in him. Spring arrived. This new year was livelier than usual because the Supreme Sect invited many schools to join the Spring Festival celebration. The Third Medicine Valley was festively decorated and noisy, all disciples wearing smiles. As night fell, on a temporary stage, disciples took turns performing, keeping the festive atmosphere lively and ebullient. Guan swayed his bowl of wine, his gaze inevitably drifting towards the night sky. Stars filled the sky, glittering and beautiful as if even the heavens were celebrating. Meanwhile, in outer heaven, the tension between the sects of the great heavenly spirit land and the heavenly demons was escalating. Guan scanned the area. There were more than 1,000,000 heavenly demons, the weakest of them in the loose immortal realm, including 2 divine thought true immortals. This was why the great heavenly spirit land dared not make a move rashly. He saw cultivators from the Holy Court negotiating with a divine thought true immortal realm heavenly demon. It seemed that the heavenly demons were the stronger side. The current Holy Court was not as formidable as the legends suggested. The heavenly demons were also testing the stance of Xingtian, while the holy court side was evasive, clearly hiding something. According to Gu An's judgment, a great battle between the two sides would soon erupt. Guan had no intention of getting involved, given the Immortal dynasty and holy court were handling things. Having just made a breakthrough, he wasn't eager to collect lifespans and preferred to lay low. Long Qing came over, clamoring to have a drinking contest with his master. How could Guan indulge him? He welcomed all challengers. The wine in Medicine Valley was spiritual wine, and even cultivators could get drunk if they had too much. It wasn't until late into the night that the third Medicine Valley finally quieted down. The next morning, Guan left the third Medicine Valley. He arrived at Mystic Valley, and after chatting with the disciples for 30 minutes, he entered the 8 scenic caves. From a distance he saw a huge creature lying under the green vine tree. It was a black sea dragon. Sky Dragon Void Crossing Realm 5th Level 387/8000/18000. Guan looked at the Sky Dragon's maximum lifespan and felt slightly disappointed. It seemed the Sky Dragon had not encountered much fortune over the years. The sea dragon lying under the tree sensed something, opened its eyes, and upon seeing Guan rapidly raised its head. Master! The sea dragon cried excitedly and then rushed towards Guan, stirring up a gust of wind that shook the surrounding flora. Its body quickly shrank to only 2 meters in length, trying to jump into Guan's arms, but Guan pressed down its dragon head with the fate-determining pen, keeping it at bay. Why are you here? Guan asked. The sea dragon chuckled. Ancient Sky Sect came to participate in the Supreme Sect's Spring Festival, and I sneaked along wanting to come see you. Guan, unamused, said, You are the holy beast of the Ancient Sky Sect. Do you think you could really sneak along without notice? He had already sensed someone approaching the 8 scenic caves. He wasn't angry, even somewhat excited. Chapter 368. Eliminating the backer. I am now at the Void Crossing Realm level. They won't be able to detect me. Sky Dragon said proudly. Despite being over 300 years old, its voice had not lost its youthful tone, sounding like a young boy. Guan did not argue, nor did he mention that someone was sneaking into the 8 scenic caves. He sized up Sky Dragon and said, Are you accustomed to staying with the Ancient Sky Sect? If you want to come back, I can talk to the Supreme Sect. With the current power of the Supreme Sect, wanting to take the Holy Beast from the Ancient Sky Sect would be no difficult task. Sky Dragon replied, It's quite good, I won't come back. The Supreme Sect is much stronger than the Ancient Sky Sect. The status I would have upon my return would certainly not compare to my former one. Guan smiled to himself, silently thinking what a foolish dragon it was, and thought to himself, then just stay in the Ancient Sky Sect. He would not go out of his way to reveal his strength to Sky Dragon. This was also his attitude toward his disciples. Only those who sincerely and insistently wished to stay by his side would he cultivate seriously. Just at that moment, footsteps were heard from the distant cave entrance, startling both Guan and Sky Dragon as they turned to look. They saw a figure emerge from the cave mouth, a man in black with handsome features, holding a folding fan in his hand and with a palm-sized black spider perched on his shoulder. He looked at Guan and Sky Dragon from afar, a mocking smile on his face, and his gaze then shifted to the green vine tree, his eyes betraying a greedy light. Although Guan could see through his cultivation level, he still could not help but send out a lifespan detection towards him. Demon Chaser, Mystic Heart Realm, 2nd Layer 2107/4600/7500, a 2,000-year-old monster. Guan looked forward to his next move while maintaining a vigilant expression on his face. Is it you? How did you? Sky Dragon's eyes widened in astonishment. Guan saw through cause and effect, destiny, and noted the intersection between Sky Dragon and Demon Chaser. Demon Chaser had hidden his identity and joined the Ancient Sky Sect, had visited Sky Dragon, and at that time, Demon Chaser had disguised himself as a nascent soul-level cultivator, treating Sky Dragon with utmost respect. If it weren't for me, do you think you could have come here? Demon Chaser sneered disparagingly. He stepped forward, the aura of the Mystic Heart Realm erupting, startling Sky Dragon, who quickly revealed its true form to stand in front of Guan. You are no match for me, and if we start fighting, this place will be exposed. Demon Chaser said coldly, his gaze fixated on the green vine tree, his eyes becoming brighter and brighter. Who exactly are you? How can you possess such a cultivation level? Sky Dragon asked through gritted teeth. The Void Crossing Realm and the Mystic Heart Realm were separated by the Unification Realm, and facing Demon Chaser, Sky Dragon felt immense pressure. Guan then began to probe Demon Chaser's cause and effect. Demon Chaser's background was rather profound, with a Mahayana realm master who was seriously injured, hiding in a cave. His master came from a demon sect at sea, with the highest cultivator within reaching the loose immortal realm, incidentally Demon Chaser's martial master. His loose immortal martial master was a traitor from an ancient family lineage. Although a traitor, his brother was still present, and the two shared a close relationship. Demon Chaser's martial master often sought his brother's help when encountering insurmountable troubles. And the strongest person from this ancient family line reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. It's worth mentioning that this family's chi fortune was related to another great heaven and earth that Guan detected during his previous breakthrough. That is to say, the origin of this family line came from another great heaven and earth. Guan was not fearful. That great heaven and earth was not substantially stronger than the great heavenly spirit land, moreover they were far apart. He merely marveled at the complexity of Demon Chaser's cause and effect. Becoming enemies with Demon Chaser could easily entangle one in a series of cause and effect grievances. Defeat the underling, then the superior, and after the superior the elder. Not long after, Demon Chaser approached Sky Dragon and said, "Kneel down, submit to me, this is your only way to live." His tone was incredibly domineering, brooking no dissent. Guan stepped to the side to let Demon Chaser see him, playing with the fate-determining pen in his right hand, and inquired with an almost smiling tone, "What about me? Do I have a way to live?" Demon Chaser looked at Guan, and Guan's smile annoyed him. He felt provoked. Demon Chaser has developed hostility towards you, seeks to kill you. Do you wish to perform lifespan detection on him? Seeing the prompt before him, Guan couldn't help but shake his head with a chuckle. His movement caused a chill to flash in Demon Chaser's eyes, who then coldly said, You must die, perfect to feed the green vine tree." Guan asked, "How do you know the green vine tree feeds on flesh and blood? What is your relationship with the Thousand Autumn Pavilion?" He knew the truth of course but wanted to ask one more question. After all, there was no hurry at the moment. Demon Chaser suddenly transformed into a wisp of demonic chi and dissipated, startling Sky Dragon greatly. It looked around instinctively and then saw Demon Chaser appear beside Guan. Demon Chaser's eyes widened in disbelief, his right hand trembling as it was blocked by the fate-determining pen. He was not only unable to harm Guan but also unable to retreat, as an invisible force had rooted him to the spot. How is this possible? Who exactly are you?" Demon Chaser asked, his voice quivering with fear. Guan looked down on him and asked, "Since I can't grant you a way to live, do you have any last words?" The sentence sent shivers down Demon Chaser's spine. "If you dare kill me, my master will not let you go." Demon Chaser gritted his teeth. Guan curiously asked, "Your master is just at the Mahayana realm and he's gravely wounded too, how can he not let me go?" As soon as he spoke, Demonic Chaser's pupils shook violently, and fear and despair enveloped his heart. He seemed to remember something, hastily saying, "My master comes from an immortal path sect. Spare me and well call it quits." Demon Chaser harbors deep-seated hatred toward you. Do you wish to perform lifespan detection on him? The hostility has even increased. Guan looked at the prompt in front of him, completely unmoved as he had no intention of sparing Demon Chaser. Now so be it, more deaths to come. Guan withdrew his arm, a terrifying force pressing Demon Chaser to kneel before him with a thud. Sky Dragon gaped, staring blankly at Guan. Memories from a long time ago surfaced in its mind. Guan was holding the fate-determining pen, waving it through the air, and with one stroke, a golden trail appeared before him, floating in the air. The golden light shone on Demon Chaser's face, leaving it completely pale. Guan wrote unhurriedly, forming the character for death. As the final stroke completed, Demon Chaser's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Guan with a mixture of shock and fear and asked through clenched teeth, "What have you done to me? You have successfully taken 67 years of lifespan from Lingchuanzhenren, Mahayana realm, 9 layers. You have successfully taken 380 years of lifespan from Zhonglu, loose immortal realm, 4th layer. You have successfully taken 512 years of lifespan from Su Tianxing, loose immortal realm, 7th layer." One prompt after another appeared before Guan, And he glanced at Demon Chaser and said indifferently, I haven't done anything to you. I've simply erased all the backing you could call upon. Demon Chaser's eyes bulged and he yelled almost manically, what kind of joke is this? Before he could finish speaking, an indescribable panic enveloped Demon Chaser's heart. For some reason he suddenly felt as though he was abandoned by the entire world. A panic unlike any other, an unspeakable palpitation that agitated his thoughts. Chapter 369. Descending into the world. Watching the Demon Chaser about to crumble, Guan couldn't be bothered to explain. With a wave of the fate-determining pen, he turned the Demon Chaser to ashes that rapidly vanished. Throughout the process, the Sky Dragon didn't speak a word, just staring blankly at Guan until the Demon Chaser disappeared. Only then did it snap back to reality. Swallowing hard, it looked at Guan with eyes filled with fear. Guan's strength had exceeded its imagination, and it hadn't been in Guan's company for many years. Reuniting after a long separation and witnessing such methods, how could it not be afraid? Seeing its expression, Guan found it amusing. He suddenly became interested and stared expressionlessly at the Sky Dragon. The look in his eyes made the Sky Dragon even more afraid, causing it to back away subconsciously. About today's affair, Guan said hauntingly, deliberately suspending his tone. The Sky Dragon hurriedly said, I definitely won't speak of it. Please trust me, master. Guan twirled the fate-determining pen in his hand, his lips turning up into a smile. This pen of mine can kill people from a very, very far distance. If you break our agreement, you understand what I mean. The Sky Dragon, terrified, its dragon body trembling, kept giving assurances. Guan turned and walked toward the green vine tree, his main purpose for taking action today being to confirm whether the fate-determining pen could indeed seize lifespan. The result was very satisfying, just as he had wished. The fate-determining pen was his own creation, not employing any external object. In the future, seizing lifespans with the fate-determining pen would be even easier for him. Dealing with the Demon Chaser this time, Guan had slain over 100, all directly related to the Demon Chaser. Sooner or later they would be entangled in this web of cause and effect. Guan essentially allowed them to meet their end early. This was the way of cause and effect. To be able to glimpse into the process of the evolution of all things was also the foundation of participating in the way of destiny. The way of cause and effect was profound and unfathomable. Guan had just begun to delve into it and already possessed the power that not even gods or demons could predict. This action had earned him over 40,000 years of lifespan, which to him at this moment wasn't significant. The Sky Dragon shrank in size, cautiously approaching Guan. Master, you are the sword venerable Fudao of the Supreme Sect, right? The Sky Dragon asked cautiously. Without turning back, Guan said, the less you know, the safer you'll be, understand? Startled by these words, the Sky Dragon nodded hastily. Together, the man and the dragon reached the green vine tree. The tree extended 2 vines that began to knead Guan's shoulders, causing the Sky Dragon to stare in bewilderment. 2 ancient hours later, Guan and the Sky Dragon left the 8 scenic caves. Guan headed toward Tianya Valley while the Sky Dragon went to look for the cultivators of the ancient Sky Sect. Within the bustling Supreme Sect, no one knew that a mystic heart realm cultivator had been reduced to dust and smoke. After the spring festival, Guan's life returned to peace. He traveled between various medicine valleys, occasionally bringing an Xin to Mortal World Peak, or visiting Yilan and Zhengqin on his own. The sects that had their medicinal herbs mysteriously harvested gradually returned to calmness. Even the Holy Court, unable to find the cause, had to give up, especially since such incidents hadn't reoccurred lately. Although he had reached the level of a Daoist hidden immortal, Guan never ceased his pursuit of development. He kept expanding the collection of high-rank medicinal herbs inside his outer world cave. Time flew swiftly. In the blink of an eye, 5 years passed. The number of heavenly demons outside had exceeded 5 million. They prowled the universe as if they wanted to tear the great heavenly spirit land to shreds. The Holy Court, Immortal Dynasty and various other sects were all on high alert, positioned everywhere, not giving the heavenly demons a chance to infiltrate. On a massive meteor, 2 men ensnared in a dark aura stood shoulder to shoulder. They looked very similar, both dressed in black scale armor, though one stood taller. The Holy Court remained silent. It appears our information is true. Could the previous disturbance have been the reincarnation of Saint Heaven? Highly likely. Within the great heavenly spirit land, only Saint Heaven would have such capacity. If that's the case, then this is a rare opportunity. Our goal is that great emperor we mustn't forget. The two men in black armor spoke in hushed tones, their eyes fixed on the great heavenly spirit land, brimming with hostility. As they were talking, they suddenly noticed something and turned their heads in unison to see a thick fog rolling in from the depths of darkness. The complexions of the men in black armor changed slightly, and they vanished from their spot. It was the season when spring turned to summer. Guan sat under a tree sharing drinks with Xianxia, exchanging insights on writing. Xianxia was very fond of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, believing it was not inferior to the Journey to the West. Once I thought Investiture of the Gods was the pinnacle, but then you wrote Journey to the West and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. You truly are amazing. Why can't I write books like these? Xianxia looked at Guan and exclaimed. Shaking his head, Guan said, Your Green Hero travelogue isn't bad either. Don't write anything else in the future. Just focus on Green Hero travelogue. If this book grows longer, it will certainly become a classic. Xianxia felt that writing serious books was rather uninteresting. Over the years he had written many without much success. Really? But many people are embarrassed to say they like Green Hero travelogue, you know? Xianxia asked doubtfully. Do you want to write a book that many people have read but seldom mention, or a book that becomes a masterpiece in the hearts of a few, something they can relish for a lifetime? Asked Guan. Hearing this question, Xianxia fell into silence. As the two were talking, a loud boom descended from the sky, startling both to look up, and not just them. Others in the valley did the same. They saw a spectacular scene of a meteor shower falling from the sky. Countless meteors with long trails of smoke descended, piercing through the clouds, resembling an apocalypse that made people uneasy from afar. What's that? Guan asked with a frown, thinking to himself that it had finally come. The heavenly demons began their invasion, effortlessly breaking through outer heaven's defenses under the lead of a free immortal. Those meteors concealed many heavenly demons. I'm not sure, I'll check it out. With those words, Xianxia disappeared from where he stood. Guan stood up and walked towards his loft. An Exan ran all the way to him, anxiously asking, Master, what exactly is that? I'm not sure either, but we're safe inside the Supreme Sect, Guan reassured her. Relieved by his words, an Exan could hear the unspoken message from her master. Those mysterious beings from outer heaven couldn't threaten him. As Guan moved forward, he glanced up and saw that one meteor was heading straight for the Taizong continent. Xianxia had already gone to meet it, preparing to protect the Taizong continent. Guan did not intend to take action. After his breakthrough with the invasion of the heavenly demons, perhaps there was some scheme behind it. As long as the continent could withstand this disaster, there was no need for him to intervene. It would be a good opportunity for others to get some practice. In fact, Sword Venerable Fudao had not acted for a long time, and there were daily conflicts of varying sizes within the Supreme Sect, which Guan did not meddle in. This also let the people of the world understand the stance of Sword Venerable Fudao. As long as the core foundation of the Supreme Sect and the safety of the continent were not threatened, Sword Venerable Fudao would not act. After Guan entered his room upstairs, Xianxia had already shattered the meteor, from which a horde of heavenly demons surged out, the strongest reaching the wandering immortal realm. They besieged Xianxia, plunging him into a hard battle. Nine-Finger Divine Lord quickly went to provide support, and cultivators from all over the continent also rushed to the scene. The Taizong continent was just a microcosm. A grand defensive battle had begun in every part of the world. The great battle outside was even more imposing. Ancient Immortal Emperor of the Immortal Dynasty and the Saint Ancestor of the Holy Court joined forces against the free immortal heavenly demons, deadlocked in combat. Divine Thought True Immortals showcased their divine skills, and even the 7 beings hidden inside the sun came out to join the battle. Phoenix, True Dragon, Qilin, White Tiger, Shen Turtle, Green Bird, Kuan. Their opponents were also colossal creatures, fierce beasts from the silent destruction domain. The scope of the battle quickly expanded, with the great heavenly spirit land at the center. Fighting figures filled every direction. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor stepped out from his house, his gaze calm as he looked up at the sky. At that moment, Long Qing passed right by him, his eyes fixated on the distance, brows tightly furrowed. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's gaze fell upon him and he suddenly furrowed his brow. After the descent of the heavenly demons, Long Qing was overcome with uncontrollable irritation, which was why he kept moving around, trying to dispel the emotions in his heart. Why is the cause and effect on his body changing? Wondered the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor with surprise. And at this time of all times, this child must definitely be related to the heavenly demons. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor developed an even greater interest in Long Qing, feeling previously that Long Qing had an unusual physique. Before long, a fierce wind blew from afar, a tempest stirred up by the great battle. Guan sat at his desk holding the Green Hero Travelogue while using his divine thought to observe the entire world. The foundation of the great heavenly spirit land was truly strong. In such a short time many divine thought true immortals, Tao void mysterious immortals, and divine immortals of wondrous dharma had emerged. From the current perspective, the heavenly demons couldn't shake the great heavenly spirit land. The battle would end following the outcome of the fierce conflict of the free immortals in outer heaven. However, Guan noticed many heavenly demons that descended chose not to fight but to sneak into the mortal world. Some seized living beings, some disintegrated, merging into the reincarnation rules, and were then sucked into the reincarnation vortex above. Guan suddenly felt that this batch of heavenly demons was not a united front. Those who had not fought were entangled in a multitude of cause and effect with Long Qing, and were very likely here to find him. His divine thought then landed on the Moonfall Divine Lake. Moonfall Divine Lake was also experiencing an attack by the heavenly demons, their situation even more dire because a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm level heavenly demon was lurking around. The reason Guan was paying attention to the Moonfall Divine Lake was mainly because of Zhu Xi with the Tai Chu swallowing yuan body. Under his gaze, Zhu Xi escaped alone from the Moonfall Divine Lake. She stepped on a flying sword, holding a lantern that made her invisible. Only when the crisis on the Taitsong continent was resolved by evening did Zhu Xi seek refuge on an island, where she hid in the forest, the lantern still burning. Unbeknownst to her, a heavenly demon was hidden on this very island. Although its cultivation was only at the loose immortal realm, it was far more than she could contend with. Her lantern could not escape the eyes of the heavenly demon. The heavenly demon was closing in on her. Zhu Xi, who was seated in meditation, frowned. Opening her eyes, she looked around, feeling panic. She had a foreboding sense of impending doom and trusted her instincts. That's why she felt so frantic, realizing she was surrounded by danger with no chance to escape. Chapter 370. The great Emperor of Calamity Jian World Nightfall descended, and the woods fell into complete silence devoid of any insect song. Zhu Xi stood up, holding a lantern in her left hand and clenching a sword in her right, her gaze nervously sweeping the surroundings. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the wind and instinctively turned her head to look. Then sounds of the wind came from another direction before she could turn again, and soon wind noises erupted from all directions. A gust carrying leaves assaulted her face, causing her eyes to widen in alarm. Far in the third Medicine Valley, Guan watched this scene unfold without intervening. Zhu Xi was no match for the loose immortal realm, losing consciousness immediately upon the other's attack. The attacker was a female heavenly demon seeking to possess her body, but just as its soul began to infiltrate, the demon sensed a terrifying devouring force. The heavenly demon instinctively tried to escape, but only part of its soul body flew out. The lower half was sucked in, unable to withdraw. Guan raised an eyebrow as he observed, how much spiritual energy had Zhu Xi consumed? At 23, even with copious quantities of spiritual energy consumed, she shouldn't be able to shake a loose immortal. Could it be she harbored an even greater secret? No matter how the female heavenly demon struggled, she could not break free from the devouring force inside Zhu Xi, and soon she was devoured. Zhu Xi then collapsed to the ground and the woods returned to tranquility. It wasn't until an ancient hour later that Zhu Xi opened her eyes with a confused gaze. Upon regaining her consciousness, she swiftly scrambled to her feet and warily surveyed her surroundings. Seeing this, Guan withdrew his divine thought. This woman was no simple character. She might become a renowned figure in the future. Guan had no intention of inviting or accepting her as a disciple. Mere curiosity prevailed. In the future it would be worthwhile to observe Zhu Zai's life trajectory, reminiscent of binge-watching a drama in his previous life. Guan smiled and then turned his attention to reading the Green Hero Travelogue seriously. The moon set and the sun rose. A new day arrived and the Taizong continent resumed its regular serenity. As the disciples gathered for morning exercises, they all discussed the distant battle of the previous day, curious about what had happened. When Guan was practicing, he used his divine thought to survey the world. Many regions were still heavily afflicted by heavenly demons, but fortunately the Holy Court and the Immortal dynasty were quicker to act, constantly exorcising demons and providing rescue. In this calamity afflicting all beings, the Immortal dynasty showed formidable prowess, quickly catching up to the Holy Court. As they saved more and more lives, Guan distinctly felt the chi fortune of the Immortal dynasty growing. This catastrophe actually presented an opportunity for the Immortal dynasty. Guan spotted An Hao's figure. He was observing the battle, for the weakest of the heavenly demons also had immortal path cultivation, far beyond his current capability. While observing the world, Xianxia returned. Many disciples looked towards him, feeling that he must know what happened the previous day. Not until the morning exercises concluded did Long Qing eagerly rush to Xianxia, asking why he had left. Yesterday heavenly demons descended. Fortunately, the crisis on this continent has been resolved, Xianxia replied, though his complexion appeared unnatural. The battle from the day before triggered some foreign memories, leading him to suspect they were from his past life. He had long been aware of his identity as a reincarnated heavenly demon, but through the years he had resolved to embrace this fact. He believed that with a determined will he would not become a demon. He even entertained the delusion of using his identity to convert heavenly demons. Heavenly demon? Long Qing's eyes widened. Xianxia began to describe the terror of the heavenly demons, leaving Long Qing trembling with fear. From afar, Guan watched the scene with amusement. Two reincarnated heavenly demons discussing the threats of their kin, neither aware of the other's true identity. He gestured to the blood prison great saint and then walked towards the outer gate city. Although the battle in outer heaven hadn't ended, he had lost interest in it for the time being, as it seemed inevitable that the heavenly demons would be repelled. He decided to visit the outer gate city for a change of scenery. Elsewhere, Three Pure Ones Mountain. Liya sat meditating at the edge of a cliff, gazing up at the sky, seemingly lost in thought. A soul approached, the ancestor of Li family who had once been hidden within Liya's body. "What are you thinking about?" The ancestor of Li family asked as he came beside Liya. "Ancestor, what is like beyond the heavens? And how many levels are there in the immortal path?" Liya asked softly. The ancestor of Li family replied, somewhat annoyed, "How would I know? You have already surpassed me in your lifetime. I am waiting for you to show me a broader world." Upon hearing this, Liya cracked a smile and then stood up, stretching languidly. "Well, get ready, as I will soon leave the mountain to seek fortune. I've realized that traveling is necessary. Secluded cultivation alone makes for slow progress in raising cultivation level. At this rate, I'm afraid I'll fall further behind in Hao." Hearing Li Ya's words, the ancestor of Li family showed a smile, saying, "I am indeed curious to see how formidable the divine exotic city is." The corners of Li Ya's mouth lifted, his eyes filled with spirit. The saint ancestor said that an era of prodigy competition is nigh. I cannot be absent. As he spoke, he lifted his right hand where a white flame blazed in his palm. The ancestor of Li family looked at Li Ya, stroking his beard and smiling, filled with emotion. In just 400 years, this young man had achieved so much. It was hard to imagine the heights he would reach in the future. Ancestor of Li family recalled the scene of meeting Li Ya, his smile deepened. In the cosmos, scorching heat waves devastated the starry space. Ancient Immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor paused, their gazes focused on a distant silhouette. Enshrouded in black fog, the figure seemed like a demon lord emerging from the abyss, a terrifying visage. His white hair flowed freely, crowned with a pair of forward-curving horns, his face pallid with pupilless eyes. He wore a black-feathered great robe, beneath which gleamed a chainmail shimmering with cold light. He was none other than the great Emperor of Calamity, a free immortal among the heavenly demons. Gazing at the calamitous great emperor, both the ancient Immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor had eyes filled with wariness. The two sides had been clashing for months. The ancient Immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor, 2 against 1, couldn't gain the upper hand, managing only to halt the great Emperor of Calamity's advancement and prevent him from stepping into the great expanse of the great heavenly spirit land. The heavenly demon's essence has dwindled to a mere tenth, yet you persist with your purpose? The ancient immortal emperor asked with an icy tone. The corners of the calamitous great emperor's mouth curled up, revealing a sinister and odd smile. He said, "Do you really think I allowed the heavenly demons to invade the great heavenly spirit land just to kill some inconsequential mortal spirits?" At these words, both the ancient immortal emperor and saint ancestor's expressions changed dramatically. Before they could interrogate him further, the calamitous great emperor was engulfed by the surrounding black fog, which churned violently and began to expand rapidly. The ancient immortal emperor and saint ancestor immediately responded, casting their mighty mana upon the black fog, but they could not dissipate it. During the surging process, the black fog coalesced into a huge black sphere that from a distance resembled a black hole. "What kind of divine skill is this?" the ancient immortal emperor asked with a grim look on his face. The saint ancestor gave no answer. He too couldn't see through it, but a strong sense of unease welled up in his heart. Meanwhile, in the Taizong continent within a subsect of the supreme sect, in a courtyard, Guan was drinking with Yi Lan and Zhen Qin. Zhen Qin was discussing recent major events in the subsect. An elder oppressed a disciple, leading to the elder's sudden and gruesome death, causing a stir throughout the sect. Zhen Qin had the makings of a storyteller with a tone that could emotionally engage listeners. Guan was quite cooperative, showing a nervous expression at critical moments of the tale. Yi Lan, on the other hand, watched Guan and was occasionally amused by his expressions. Suddenly Zhen Qin stood up, drew her sword and pointed it to one side, her eyes wide as she said, "That's exactly what I did, holding my sword to that man's neck, questioning him why he would harm his own master." Despite the evidence in front of him, he was still defiant, refusing to admit anything. Guan was about to speak when he suddenly sensed something, his eyes subtly shifting. Zhen Qin was about to continue her story when her expression changed abruptly. Not only her but Yi Lan's expression also changed dramatically. "What's going on? Why do I feel like something is grabbing me?" exclaimed Zhen Qin in horror, instinctively looking at Yi Lan. Yi Lan's body trembled as she spoke through gritted teeth. "Me too, I can't break free." In Gu Ayan's eyes, a mysterious causality force intertwined around Yi Lan and Zhen Qin. It wasn't just the two of them. Within the subsect, many others were entangled by this force of causality. He looked up to see the sky, which appeared a magnificent blue, but through his eyes, there appeared an intricate black net across the sky, beyond the reach of mortal beings. This black net seemed to connect with countless souls in the world. Gu An's divine thought followed the black net and saw the enormous black sphere in the universe. In that instant he understood the calamitous great emperor's divine skill. No wonder there were so many heavenly demons reincarnating and seizing bodies. It was to merge into the rules of heaven and earth within the great heavenly spirit land. Watching the trend of causality force exerted by the calamitous great emperor, it seemed he intended to pull many beings of the great heavenly spirit land into that black sphere. Guan saw that Long Qing was also entwined by this force of causality. He immediately stood up and, feigning panic, grabbed Yi Lan's shoulder to ask her what was wrong. "Elder brother, get away quickly," Yi Lan said through clenched teeth, unable to shake his grip nor stand up. "What's happening? How could I possibly abandon you?" Guan exclaimed anxiously. Yi Lan was about to reply when suddenly the world spun around them. The same sensation hit Zhen Qin. Then Guan and the two women vanished into thin air. At this moment, countless beings disappeared without a trace, causing an earth-shattering uproar within the supreme sect subsect. Yi Lan clenched her eyes shut, feeling as if she was falling, a sensation even she, in the divinity transformation realm, found extremely unbearable. As she continued to fall, she gradually regained control of her body. Soon she felt her feet touch the ground. A hand grasped her right hand, immediately calming her heart. This was her elder brother's hand. She knew every line on his palms, there could be no mistake. She then felt her eyes could open and immediately did so. What appeared before her was a sky shrouded in crimson, with countless figures descending from above like a torrential downpour. Gu and Zhen Qin stood beside her, atop a mountain peak, all looking at the sky in shock. "Where is this place?" Zhen Qin asked with trembling voice, her beautiful eyes wide. She followed the direction the figures were falling and saw a series of peaks stretching endlessly into the gloom. Once all the figures landed, the crimson sky revealed a pair of immense eyes, those of the calamitous great emperor, looking down upon all beings within the world as if searching for something. Mortal spirits of great heavenly spirit land, this realm created by this emperor is Zhou Xian world. No one can save you here. However, this emperor is merciful and will offer you a sliver of hope. The voice of the calamitous great emperor resonated, like a dull thunder, echoing through the heavens and earth. Chapter 371 Heavenly Dao and Heavenly Demon Long Qing stood on the hillside, gazing up at the huge eye in the sky, his face full of fear. Other people were also on the hillside, all of them were disciples of the Supreme Sect, and an Exin was among them. Every person listening to the words of the great demon emperor felt a chill down their spine, their hearts filled with fear. They had never heard of the Zhou Xian world, and it was even the first time they had heard the name of the great heavenly spirit land. Within the great heavenly spirit land, there are many heavenly demons reincarnated. They may be your kin or your dear friends. If you want to survive, then kill all the reincarnated heavenly demons. The heavenly demons must do the same. Kill off all the creatures of the great heavenly spirit land and you will regain your freedom, said the great demon emperor, his voice ringing out, tone frosty, filled with a murderous intent. Yilan and Zhenqin frowned upon hearing this, and they instinctively looked around, fearing an attack by a heavenly demon. Guan speculated that the great demon emperor was looking for Long Qing. But why didn't he directly wipe out all the beings that fell into the Zhou Xian world? Soon Guan understood. It was the protection of the heavenly Dao. As the voice of the great demon emperor ceased, Guan felt the presence of many heavenly demons. Those reincarnated began to awaken their heavenly demon origin. As the demonic qi grew, the aura of the heavenly Dao began to emerge from the bodies of the great heavenly spirit land creatures. This so-called heavenly Dao aura was the same as the aura of the layer of light outside the great heavenly spirit land, which prevented beings below heaven and earth flying immortal from flying to outer heaven. In fact, everything in the great heavenly spirit land was infused with heavenly Dao aura, including the other great heaven and earth realms that Guan glimpsed during his breakthrough. The heavenly Dao is omnipresent. This is a force distinct from the Dao, and within it, implicitly lies the will of heaven, referring to the heavenly Dao rules. The creatures from the silent destruction domain are easily distinguishable because they don't have the aura of the heavenly Dao. Their presence is discomforting to beings born under the heavenly Dao, and thus the two factions have been incompatible since ancient times. The great demon emperor was obviously studying the way of cause and effect, fearful of slaughtering too many creatures of the heavenly Dao and suffering a karma rebound. Killing a few creatures of the heavenly Dao, however, was no issue. In the memories of Long Zhan and Lu Han, they had heard mentions of the heavenly Dao, which for cultivators, was a vague and elusive legend. Of course, if pushed to the brink, the great demon emperor wouldn't care so much. After all, he came from the silent destruction domain and couldn't possibly suffer a karma rebound so severe that his body and Dao perished. If the heavenly Dao were so powerful, there wouldn't be the existence of the silent destruction domain. The great demon emperor stopped speaking, and the pair of eyes also vanished, plunging the entire world into silence. Guan noticed that Ji Xiaoyu and Hao Liya, Zhou Xian, Tianyi, Jiangqiong, Longqing, and Exen, and other people had also been pulled into the Zhou Xian world. It seemed that the beings dragged into the Zhou Xian world, apart from the reincarnated heavenly demons, were almost all but ordinary. At least their fates were extraordinary. He suddenly thought of a question. Could the great demon emperor's action be related to the commotion of his breakthrough? Very likely. On reflection, if it were not for him, Long Qing would not have been born early. According to the man in black on Qingtian Peak, Long Qing needed to be nurtured for at least a few thousand years. Gu An's actions advanced many things by thousands of years. What should we do? Zhenqin looked at Yilan and asked, accustomed to Yilan taking the lead. Yilan took a deep breath and said, "We'll have to play it by ear." According to his words, we can unite with many people. This is not a matter of individual survival but a competition between two camps. Over the past few months, news about the heavenly demons had already spread within the Supreme Sect, and many legends of heavenly demons circulated. They knew that the heavenly demons came from beyond the heavens, and because of this, they were very wary of them, not overly confident. Yilan continued, I sense the presence of some of our fellow sect members. Let's meet up with the people of the Supreme Sect first. Xianxia nodded and Guan had no objection. He wanted to see how Yilan and the others would perform in the face of such a catastrophe. The three of them began to descend the hill. Guan's divine thought swept the area. There were quite a few heavenly demons, numbering over 1,000,000. Although they were not as numerous as the creatures of the great heavenly spirit land, the heavenly demons' cultivation levels were higher. A fierce battle would follow soon. Guan would make his move when the great heavenly spirit land side was on the brink of collapse. To him, the great Emperor of Calamity wasn't that strong. Both well studied in the way of cause and effect, Guan's causal power was a step ahead of the great Emperor of Calamity. The Zhuan world was formed by the forces of causality, and for Guan to break it was hardly a difficult task. Master, who would have thought that the three of us would have the chance to adventure together? Xianxia suddenly turned her head to look at Guan, saying with a grin no longer as tense as before. Yilan couldn't help but look towards Guan as well, though her eyes held more worry. In her mind, Guan was protected by Sword Venerable Fudao, but whether Sword Venerable Fudao could find the Zhuan world was not certain, hence she worried that she wouldn't be able to protect Guan. She would rather die alone than let Guan die before her. Intuition told her that the heavenly demon was absolutely terrifying. She had to go into battle prepared to die without a trace of carelessness. Rest assured, I am very strong, I won't hold you back, Guan said seriously, taking out the fate-determining pen. Xianxia couldn't help but tease. Being in the nascent soul realm is indeed impressive. Got wings and now looking down on your master's cultivation level? Dare not, dare not. The master and disciple began to banter. Guan's divine thought had already spread out, watching over Ji Xiaoyu and Hao and others, to prevent them from encountering an unbeatable foe. 30 minutes later, Guan and the others from the Supreme Sect gathered, deciding to look for disciples from their own sect. The Zhuan world was large but not as incomparably vast as the great heavenly spirit land, so an Xen and the others were not far from them. The disciples of the Supreme Sect pulled into the Zhuan world numbered only a few dozen, either with extraordinary fates or geniuses. Long Qing's body contained the path of returning primordial spirit strengthened by Guan, and thus he did not awaken to become a heavenly demon. Facing the imminent battle with the heavenly demon, Long Qing was excited. He had long wanted to take on the world, but his master had not allowed it. During flight, a thunderous roar came from afar, startling the disciples of the Supreme Sect into immediately accelerating away from the battle. Guan stood behind Yilan, sharing a sword with her, when he spotted a familiar face engaged in the distant battle. The kid was directly using the power of divine exotic city to suppress the heavenly demon, drawing in more of them for a siege. Guan began to watch the battle, wanting to see how much Li Ye had improved. Time rushed by quickly. An hour later, the Supreme Sect's side finally met up. The forces of causality hadn't scattered their position. Master! An Xen, seeing Guan, immediately showed a joyously surprised expression. She swiftly flew by Guan's side, her anxious look swept away, replaced with excitement. Long Qing too flew over, chattering non-stop in excitement. He couldn't wait to fight the heavenly demon. Yilan started negotiating with other disciples of the Supreme Sect. Xianxia looked at an Xen and Long Qing, her expression odd. Why weren't these two scared at all? It was one thing for Long Qing to be fearless, the young and rash type, but why was an Xen, that girl, getting all excited too? Chapter 372. Who are you exactly? Supreme Sect disciples discussed for quite some time and ultimately decided to join the battle. In their view, hiding and waiting for others to fight, hoping for a slim chance of survival, was very foolish. Guan much appreciated the courage and insight of the Supreme Sect disciples. In such a situation, choosing to lay low could indeed result in a complete loss. Unity was surely the best approach. Dozens of people banded together and flew towards the nearest battlefield. Li Ye had already finished his battle. Relying on the powerful force of divine exotic city, his victory came easily. He didn't even have to lift a finger. It was entirely the divine exotic immortal spirit fighting on his behalf. 30 minutes later, Guan and the others joined the encirclement against the heavenly demon. Under Yilan's arrangement, Guan was positioned on the outermost layer, responsible for casting long-range spells. With the fate-determining pen in hand, Guan pretended to exert himself earnestly. His divine thought also looked towards the distance, enveloping the entire Zhuan world, spying on the battlefield from a macro perspective. More and more beings began to engage in battle with the heavenly demon, all becoming embroiled in fierce combat. Guan started to snatch kills. When the heavenly demon was on the verge of death, his divine thought would strike at the heavenly demon. A series of prompts popped up before his eyes, bringing him increasing pleasure. Suddenly he captured a whiff of the presence of a free immortal. The other party was well hidden but could not escape his divine thought. It must be the creator of the Zhou Xian world. This person was masquerading as part of the great heavenly spirit land side and was still opposing the heavenly demon. What did this mean? Guan couldn't figure it out, so he couldn't be bothered to think about it. He continued to balance the battlefield. If the heavenly demons had an overwhelming advantage over the beings, he would help suppress them, giving those of the great heavenly spirit land a chance to train. The beings who were drawn into the Zhou Xian world were not mediocre. One day they would become the backbone of the great heavenly spirit land. What Guan needed to do was ensure not too many talents from the great heavenly spirit land perished while allowing this experience to provide them with opportunities for transformation. In the cosmos, more and more cultivators flew to the vicinity of the Black Sphere, looking nervously at the Black Sphere created by the demon Great Emperor. Damn it, are we just going to watch this happen? My sect has hundreds of disciples caught up in this. They are all the future of my sect. Isn't our sect the same? What exactly is this method? Move aside, I refuse to believe it. Is the Holy Court truly helpless? Great cultivators of various factions discussed among themselves. Some even attacked the giant Black Sphere, trying to shatter it, but no spells or divine skills that struck the Black Sphere could move it. The ancient Immortal Emperor and Saint Ancestor stood on high ground, frowning at this scene. A figure appeared behind them. A middle-aged man dressed in golden garments, holding a jade ruler with a dignified face. Holy Minister, is there truly no way to resolve this? The man in golden garments asked. He was indeed the Holy Minister of the Holy Court. At this moment his brow was furrowed and his eyes were full of worry. The Saint Ancestor with his back to him answered, I can sense that the chief fortune of the Holy Court has not weakened, which means that those juniors involved have not suffered significant casualties. Let's seal off this space first. The Holy Minister hesitated for a moment, then turned to give the order. The ancient Immortal Emperor took a deep breath and said, I feel that his purpose is not the slaughter of the young generation of the great heavenly spirit land. Seems he is searching for something. The Saint Ancestor replied, I think so as well, but throughout history there have been too many beings from outer heaven that have infiltrated the great heavenly spirit land. It is temporarily impossible for me to deduce what the demon Great Emperor is searching for. The two free immortals fell into confusion, their gaze never leaving the Black Sphere. Time moved quickly. Half a day after entering the Zhou Xian world, all the beings within began to fight with the sounds of battle everywhere. With Guan's hidden help, the morale of those from the great heavenly spirit land continued to rise. The more the heavenly demons perished, the greater the advantage for the great heavenly spirit land side. In just half a day, Guan had already reaped more than 30 million years of lifespan, successfully surpassing 100 million in total. Not a single Supreme Sect disciple had died, everyone's confidence was growing, and even Yilan no longer constrained Guan as before, also looking for opportunities for Guan to gain experience. The Zhou Xian world seemed to have no day or night. The blood-colored sky only showed shifting clouds. Guan, holding the fate-determining pen and standing on the heavenly resident's sword, followed the steps of the main force. An Exan was beside him, discussing the previous battle with Long Qing. Guan's eyes looked towards the front lines at Wuzhu. As the mainstay of the Supreme Sect disciples, Wuzhu was capable of standing on his own. Seeing his independence, Guan couldn't help but think of his own timid demeanor in the past, filled with emotion. If possible, Guan would rather the ordeal last a few more days, but the heavenly demon-free immortal was becoming harder to restrain. It had only been half a day and a third of the heavenly demons had died. Tens of thousands of miles away, on a mountain cliff stood a man in black, furrowing his brow. He was the incarnation of the demon Great Emperor. What's going on? The beings of the great heavenly spirit land can't possibly be this formidable. The demon Great Emperor was filled with confusion. In his view, although the great heavenly spirit land side had a numerical advantage, it should not be showing its current strength since the heavenly demon side was clearly stronger. The more the demon Great Emperor thought about it, the more panicked he became. He felt that an unknown entity might have infiltrated the Jiyuan world. Even he, a free immortal, couldn't see through it. The first he thought of was Xianxia of the Holy Court. He had previously obtained the Saint Heaven reincarnation. Perhaps Xianxia had also been pulled in and was secretly making a move? The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. He immediately disappeared from the spot. Wuju flew to Gu An's side and said, "According to the intelligence we've gathered, the other battlefields are also gaining an advantage, so you don't need to worry too much." Guan replied reluctantly, "What do I have to worry about? It's you guys who are charging into battle. I'm in no danger at all." Wuju laughed and said, "This is still your first time leaving the Supreme Sect for an adventure. I'm just afraid you might be anxious." An Xian covered her mouth and snickered nearby. Wuju thought she was laughing at Guan, so he didn't think much of it. Standing behind Guan, Longqing leaned forward and excitedly asked, "Elder Wu, when will the next battle begin?" During the previous fight he had also participated, and his formidable physique surprised many disciples of the Supreme Sect. It was truly inconceivable that this lad had not an ounce of spiritual power but could still display such domineering performance. Wuju looked at him and smiled. It should be soon. Having successively slain heavenly demons, Wuju began to underestimate them, feeling that they were not as terrifying as he had imagined. Just as Wuju was about to speak further, he saw Longqing's eyes widen in nervous anticipation, looking towards the sky. Instinctively, he turned his head and saw a pair of gigantic eyes appear in the blood-colored sky, eyes that belonged to the Great Emperor of Disaster. The Great Emperor of Disaster seemed to be searching for something. His gaze moved rapidly, and except for Guan, whose heart would flutter at the sight of it, anyone else who locked gazes with the Great Emperor felt their hearts race. In the presence of these eyes, any creature, no matter how talented, would feel an instinctual terror. The entire Jiyuan world fell into silence, all life forms gazing up at the eyes of the Great Emperor of Disaster. On the edge of a forest, Zhou Xian looked up at the Great Emperor, her eyes filled with worry, while the cultivators and demons above the forest were just as tense. "Dear heavens, please let me survive this calamity," Zhou Xian prayed silently in her heart. In the earlier part of the day, although she had been part of the battle, she never approached the heavenly demons closely and only played a supporting role. As the eyes of the Great Emperor of Disaster appeared, people's excitement was extinguished. What did it matter if they could defeat the heavenly demons? To leave alive, the demonic eyes in the heavens were an unavoidable presence. Suddenly, the Great Emperor of Disaster's eyes burst open, his pupilless gaze emitting a strange red light, and all creatures changed in expression, falling into a stupefied state. Those creatures in the air began to descend, landing on the mountains and lands below, while the heavenly demons retreated, seemingly under orders not to strike when the enemy was vulnerable. Guan felt the consciousness of those around him fall into some kind of illusion. Everyone was confronting the deepest fears in their hearts. Guan pretended to go along, enduring the spread of the illusion realm. He led Longqing down onto a hillside. The gaze of the Great Emperor of Disaster landed on Ji Xiaoyu, with a strange look in his eyes, but then he moved it away and fell upon Longqing. All creatures were in pain, yet Longqing remained calm. The giant eyes in the sky then disappeared. The Great Emperor of Disaster appeared out of nowhere beside Longqing, looking him over. Surprisingly, Longqing felt no fear at all, and his illusion was of a bright great heaven and earth where he was running around, calling out for Guan and an Exin. Could he be the reincarnation of Longqing? He wondered. The gaze of the Great Emperor of Disaster flickered. Then raising a hand, he attempted to touch Longqing's forehead. Snap! Suddenly, a hand grabbed the wrist of the Great Emperor's right hand, causing an unexpected change of expression on his face as he looked in astonishment at Guan standing beside Longqing. "Saint Heaven!" The Great Emperor of Disaster frowned and said, "You should be able to tell that I don't intend to exterminate everyone. I'm just looking for Longqing. Don't you bear a grudge against the Long family of the Battle Court?" It turns out that what the Great Emperor of Disaster feared was not just the heavenly Dao destiny but Saint Heaven as well. The Great Emperor of Disaster, Level 5 Free Immortal Realm 37,902,765/100 million/200 million. What a long life span. It would be a pity not to slay. Guan asked, "How can you be sure that I am Saint Heaven?" As soon as these words came out, the complexion of the great Emperor of Disaster changed drastically, and he instinctively tried to teleport away, only to discover to his horror that he could not move at all. How is this possible? The great Emperor of Disaster tried to use the power of cause and effect, but he couldn't shake Guan, which terrified him even more. Who are you really? The great Emperor of Disaster stared at Guan, asking with a trembling voice that could not hide his fear. Guan asked, "Why are you looking for Long Qing?" Upon hearing this, the face of the great Emperor of Disaster filled with a look of despair as he murmured to himself, "The Long family still has a great power hidden away." Seeing that he was unwilling to answer, Guan lost his patience and directly assailed the soul of the great Emperor of Disaster with divine thought. Great Imprisoned Soul Immortal Technique. Search memories. After a dozen or so breaths, Guan withdrew his divine thought, and with a squeeze of his right hand, the great Emperor of Disaster instantly disintegrated into ash. A blood-red Tao seed hovered in front of him. Guan's gaze sharpened as the terrifying force of causality immediately ground the Tao seed into dust, vanishing in a flash. You have successfully seized 6,230,567 years of lifespan from the great Emperor of Disaster, level 5 free immortal realm. Over 620,000 years of lifespan. A look of pleasure crossed Guan's face. Truly worthy of a free immortal. Chapter 373. Reincarnation Tribulation. After slaying the evil emperor, the Zhou world did not dissipate and maintained its heaven and earth form. The beings trapped in the illusion realm awakened one after another. Yilan, upon waking, instinctively turned around, and when she saw Guan was unharmed, she immediately sighed in relief. An Exan opened her eyes, spotted Guan's figure and drew closer to him, while patting her chest with a frightened expression on her face. When all the disciples of the Supreme Sect had woken up, everyone gathered to discuss the recent events, all with tensed minds, guarding against the evil emperor striking again. Little did they know the master of the Zhou world had already turned to ashes and smoke. Guan, having searched through the evil emperor's soul, had a subtle look in his eyes as he glanced at Long Qing and heaved a slight sigh in his heart. Long Qing turned out to be the sole survivor of the dragon lineage, and the evil emperor had been sent to eradicate the dragon family bloodline completely. The man in black at Qingtian Peak was Long Qing's subordinate. Long Qing's reincarnation was to avoid the pursuit of the forces behind the evil emperor. Battle Court. The battle court of today was no longer a force led by descendants of the dragon family. It was exactly for this reason that the master of the battle court had wanted to eradicate Long Qing, fearing that a powerful member of the dragon family could be resurrected through their bloodline. Years ago, the reincarnated Long Qing hid very well. To avoid the pursuit of the battle court, Long Qing's subordinates sneaked into Qingtian Peak, unnoticed by gods or ghosts, and came to the great heavenly spirit land. But the turmoil in the silent destruction domain years ago had caught the attention of the evil emperor. The Dark War Emperor was sent by the evil emperor. To be precise, the Dark War Emperor was cultivated by the evil emperor, and the inheritance of the Dark War Emperor's battle court originated from the evil emperor. It was through the Dark War Emperor's reckless actions that the evil emperor speculated that Xingtian had reincarnated. To ascend beyond the 9-layered realm of the free immortal, one must undergo reincarnation tribulations. Only after 100 lifetimes is there a chance to strike at the Tao fruit realm. This is the reincarnation tribulation. In the memory of the evil emperor, he had been defeated by Xingtian and nearly perished. This was also why the evil emperor had previously dared not personally come to the great heavenly spirit land. The Dark War Emperor was merely one of his pawns, and not even the Holy Court's holy ministers knew there was someone behind the Dark War Emperor. Just the thought that Long Zhan's descendants were reduced only to Long Qing made Guan feel a tinge of melancholy. Guan, however, was not afraid of an attack from the battle court, for from the evil emperor's memories, it was clear that stronger existences from the battle court could not reach this universe, and only the free immortal could. Therefore, the battle court had dispatched the evil emperor, but the specific reasons for that were unclear even to the evil emperor himself. The evil emperor had been in this universe for countless years. At that time, Long Qing's parents were still alive, and they had perished at his hands. After countless years, the bloodline of the dragon family in various universes had been exterminated, leaving only Long Qing. While the disciples were discussing the schemes of the evil emperor, Guan was silent. With a thought, the blood-red sky began to collapse silently. "Look at the sky quickly," someone exclaimed, causing others to look up. Seeing the sky twist, everyone panicked, not having time to think further, as the dizziness they felt before entering the Zhou world re-emerged, causing them to promptly close their eyes. Unable to move or peek at their surroundings, this feeling made everyone's heart race. Only Guan kept his eyes open. Under his divine thought's impact, the Zhou world began to collapse, and he divided its karmic forces into the power of rules, distributing it to everyone, bestowing them a fortune. Utilizing karmic causation, Guan sent everyone back to their respective places in the great heavenly spirit land. Meanwhile, the great cultivators in the universe saw a giant black orb begin to tremble and dissolve into black mist, making them even more nervous, fearing that something might have happened to their juniors inside. As the black mist dispersed, they sensed something and turned their heads, their faces revealing joy. They felt the presence of their juniors. No matter what the evil emperor had planned, at least their juniors were alive. The ancient immortal emperor and the saint ancestors furrowed their brows, exchanging glances, both seeing confusion in each other's eyes. What's happening? On the other side. Taitsong continent, supreme sex subsect. Yilan abruptly opened her eyes, saw Guan sitting across from her with eyes still firmly closed, breathed a sigh of relief, then looked around with a look of surprise on her face. Xianxia then awoke, followed by Guan. "Are we back? Could it be that all the heavenly demons have been wiped out?" Xianxia asked cautiously. Guan took a deep breath and said, "I'm not sure. Did you feel anything extra in your minds?" He had used the karmic power of the evil emperor to enhance the being's insight into the way of cause and effect, which had nothing to do with him, so he wasn't concerned that someone could infer anything about himself through this. Besides, his own method of divine thought naturally shielded him from karmic deductions. Yilan and Xianxia nodded, then began to share their insights. It wasn't just them. All the beings who had returned from the Zhou world were curious about the karma Dao they found in their minds. After a long discussion, Guan stood up and said, "I've been delayed long enough, I must go back." Yilan wanted to say something, but Guan turned and walked away, deeply concealing his abilities and his renown. "It's fine, we're back now. Listen to the noises outside," Xianxia comforted her, saying that with their level of cultivation, they could hear the sounds outside the estate, confirming that they were indeed back. Yilan frowned, worrying about being pulled into the Zhou world again. Yet upon second thought, if that mysterious existence wanted to do so, what would be the point in releasing them? Having just returned to the third medicine valley, Guan was stopped by an Xian and Longqing, who excitedly spoke of their newfound enlightenments, drawing more and more people to gather around. Hearing about their half-day ordeal, the disciples were astonished. Longqing looked toward Xianxia, who was approaching, and asked, "Master, what exactly is the Zhou world?" Xianxia furrowed his brows. He was not chosen, and he replied, "I do not know either. Tell me in detail about your experiences." Longqing nodded and then began to recount to Xianxia about their journey to the Zhou world. When he reached the part about battling the heavenly demons, he became visibly excited. While Longqing captured everyone's attention, Guan slipped back into the house. With the fall of the great emperor of evil, this disaster brought by the heavenly demons seemed to be drawing to a close. There should be peace for a while as long as the Immortal dynasty and the Holy Court do not fight among themselves. Guan saw a large number of great cultivators returning to the outer heaven, and all the sects were inquiring about their disciples' experiences. It was unknown what changes this cycle of karma and fortune would bring to the great heavenly spirit land. The beings chosen for the Zhou world were all geniuses, those with extraordinary chi fortune. In tens of thousands of years, they would be the ones dictating the fate of the great heavenly spirit land. Tens of thousands of years, it still seemed so distant. Guan, now 425 years old, felt such sentiments in his heart. Above the sea of clouds, a woman in yellow robes flew along. It was Zhu Xian with the Tai Chu swallowing yuan body. She gazed at the majestic mountains towering into the clouds in the distance, a look of anticipation in her eyes. "Mortal world peak, I have finally arrived," Zhu Xian murmured to herself. 50 years had passed since their journey to the Zhou world. In those 50 years she traveled the world. Some years ago, when she heard that Mortal World Peak was recruiting mortal spirits, she decided to try her luck. Mortal World Peak was one of the top immortal sects in the world. If she could take root here, she would not need to wander anymore. At the same time, atop Dingtian Peak, Guan, who was reading in the mountaintop courtyard, sensed Zhu Zai's presence and felt a touch of surprise. Was this a coincidence? He had no intention of looking after Zhu Xi. He wanted to see how she would fare after joining Mortal World Peak. Beside him, an Exen who was practicing Daoist Gang primal energy, turned her head to Guan and said, "Master, the Gang Qi inside my body is going haywire. I can't control it." Her tone was anxious, clearly in panic. Guan, lying in his chair, did not get up but just lifted his left hand and flicked his index finger towards her. A jet of strength energy shot out, entered Enzin's body and instantly calmed the rampaging Gang Qi, restoring its normal flow. An Exen breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at Guan with admiration, she asked, "Master, how are you so powerful? When will I be able to cultivate to your level?" "Cultivate for 100 million years, Guan replied offhandedly, flipping the page with his left hand. 100 million years. How long is that? Who can live that long? An Exen complained, feeling like her master was teasing her. Guan ignored her and continued reading. This book was not the Green Hero Travelogue, but a rare book he found at Mortal World Peak, which recounted an extraordinary tale from Mortal World Peak, a story of a disciple who fell in love with a female demon. This book was a banned one, quite hard to come by. Based on Gu An's experience, the writing in this book was not as delicate as that by Xian Tianyi, but it had its charms in the bizarre. The demoness reincarnated several times to find the protagonist, which was quite touching. As dusk approached, Guan finally got up, stretched and then left with an Exen. After returning to the Supreme Sect, the pair landed in a grove and made their way toward Mystic Valley. An Exen was talking animatedly about her cultivation progress for the day, very lively. Guan was not bothered by her enthusiasm and listened attentively, offering occasional guidance. Arriving at Mystic Valley, Guan spotted a familiar face. Jiang Qiong was standing in front of a garden railing, admiring the flowers in full bloom. Guan asked an Exen to head back to the third Medicine Valley on her own, and he approached Jiang Qiong. Looking at Jiang Qiong's back skeptically, an Exen didn't stop but headed towards the transmission array platform. "How long have you been here?" Gu An's voice reached Jiang Qiong's ears. Without turning around, she focused on a flower and responded, "About 2 ancient hours, I'd say." Only when Guan came to her side did she turn to face him and size him up. "So many years have passed, how come you are still at the nascent soul realm? When I was in the Jiyuan world I felt your presence. You must have gained some opportunities," Jiang Qiong asked with a frown. Guan raised an eyebrow. "What realm are you in that you look down on the nascent soul realm?" Jiang Qiong huffed. "I am preparing to challenge the Unification Realm. I came to see you before attempting Tribulation Crossing." Unification Realm? Gu En's eyes widened, showing a look of surprise. Jiang Qiong's lips curved up in a smile. "Unification Realm, that's all. I actually find it rather slow. In today's world, what is the Unification Realm even worth?" Guan fell silent. Thinking she had demoralized him, Jiang Qiong changed the subject. "You should talk some sense into your disciple. That girl Zhenqin wants to take revenge on the ghost mother of Ephemera. If I hadn't intervened, she would have already died at the hands of the ghost mother." Chapter 374, The Book of the Reincarnation Path. Emperor. Upon hearing Jiang Qiong's words, Guan frowned and then sighed. "How can I persuade you? It's true that Su Han was indeed forced to death by the ghost mother of Ephemera. That year, when Su Han was pursued and had no choice but to follow the ghost mother of Ephemera, she taught him the defying fate divine skill. Before his death, he transferred his cultivation level to Zhenqin, helping Zhenqin to be reborn. After so many years, Zhenqin always remembered the hatred in her heart. Guan had long severed the master-disciple relationship with Su Han and had even saved him, owing Su Han nothing, so he did not plan to take revenge for Su Han. Moreover, the ghost mother of Ephemera had already pledged allegiance to him. If not for his arrangement, how could the ghost mother of Ephemera have helped Jiang Qiong establish the Juhua sect? Guan would not help Zhenqin kill the ghost mother of Ephemera but would ensure her survival. Perhaps it was unfair to the ghost mother of Ephemera, but there was no helping it. In Gu An's heart, Zhenqin was definitely more important than the ghost mother of Ephemera. Out of his first batch of Medicine Valley disciples, Only Zhou was still alive, and since she was very filial to him, how could he not favor her? Jiang Qiong frowned and said, "The ghost mother of ephemera is now the deputy sect master of the Juhua sect. It's impossible for me to confront her. There's no need. Everyone has their own grudges. Your protection of Zhou life is enough. Thank you." Guan spoke earnestly and then raised his hand to salute Jiang Qiong. Jiang Qiong snorted and said, "What thanks? Your business is my business. I quite like that girl Zhou too. Once I'm strong enough, I'll help her slaughter the ghost mother of ephemera." Guan was taken aback and asked, "Do you have a grudge against her?" "No grudge, but if I had to choose between you and her, I would definitely choose you. However, these are all things for later once I have the ability." Jiang Qiong shook her head. Afterwards she talked about the insights she gained in the Jiyuan world. Since her journey in the Jiyuan world, she had many revelations during her cultivation, particularly about divination. She could now peer into the cause and effect of mortals to deduce their fate. She was curious if Guan had gained anything. Guan replied that he had, but his fortunes were not as great as hers, which left her slightly disappointed. After night had fallen, Jiang Qiong took Guan to the 8 scenic caves. "Why insist on going to the 8 scenic caves? Just stay at my 3rd medicine valley. Now that you're a giant of the righteous path, having formed an alliance with Supreme Sect, they won't stop you from entering Supreme Sect." Walking through the forest, Guan couldn't help asking. Jiang Qiong, holding his right wrist, didn't look back and said, "The 8 scenic caves are our home." "What home? You want to live in a coffin?" Hearing Guan's words, Jiang Qiong couldn't help but turn around and glare at him. In the end, Guan couldn't resist Jiang Qiong and was pulled into the 8 scenic caves with her. It wasn't until noon the next day that Guan finally returned to the 3rd medicine valley. As he arrived at his own loft, Ji Xiaoyu stepped out of the door. 40 years ago Ji Xiaoyu had returned. Her understanding of the way of cause and effect far surpassed that of an Exin Long Qing Yilan and others. Guan could feel the force of cause and effect growing stronger within her. "Who did you fool around with last night?" Ji Xiaoyu stared at Guan, asking with a somewhat cold voice. Guan looked at her and replied, "With an old friend. When I knew her you weren't even born yet. If not for her guidance, where would I be today?" His words were no joke. Jiang Qiong had taught him so much. Among them, the Demon Shadow Divine skill was the most important. Under Guan's enhancement, this skill could now isolate cause and effect. Reaching the Immortal Path realm, many would start to delve into divination techniques. And to rise to the carefree primordial immortal realm was to study the way of cause and effect. Without Jiang Qiong's Demon Shadow Divine skill, perhaps Guan's true cultivation level would have been discovered long ago. Hearing his words, Ji Xiaoyu's expression softened, and she was about to continue speaking but was preempted by him. "Focus on your immortal cultivation and don't bother with the affairs of mortal romance." Having said that, Guan quickly ascended the stairs. Ji Xiaoyu watched him go up, her eyebrows tightly furrowed. As Guan entered the room ready to close the door, Ji Xiaoyu appeared out of nowhere, pressing her hand against the door. "What are you doing?" Guan frowned at Ji Xiaoyu, a look of fear on his face. Ji Xiaoyu stepped forward expressionlessly, startling him into stepping back. Bang! After Ji Xiaoyu entered the room, the door closed heavily behind her. Guan kept retreating until he reached the table, looking at Ji Xiaoyu's expressionless face with trepidation. What did this woman want to do? Was she going to hit him or was she trying to learn from Jiang Qiong? Just thinking about last night's chaos gave Guan a headache. Why were so many women interested in him? Even if he refused, it wouldn't work. Ji Xiaoyu walked up to him and said, "Over these years I've been delving into the way of cause and effect and have discovered that your disciple Long Qing has extraordinary karma. Where exactly did you find him? Do you know his true identity?" Hearing this, Guan asked in astonishment, "Extraordinary karma? What do you mean? What's wrong with him? Could he be the reincarnation of a heavenly demon?" Ji Xiaoyu scrutinized Guan's expression, feeling that he did not seem to be lying. Her expression softened as she said, "Whether he is a heavenly demon or not is yet to be determined. Keeping him by your side is sure to bring you disaster. Otherwise, hand him over to me or let Xianxia take him to the Bitter Sea Buddha sect." "That doesn't seem right. He's grown up in the 3rd medicine valley since he was a child. How could I possibly drive him away?" Guan frowned. Ji Xiaoyu took a deep breath and said, His lineage is not simple. I can feel that my primordial Daoist talisman is very wary of his karma and unwilling to intervene. I'm not joking. Don't you want to live in peace forever? Guan thought to himself, of course his lineage isn't simple. He's my descendant from a past life. Guan asked, does that elder also know about this? He was referring to the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. That rascal was still inside the house recuperating and did not eavesdrop on their conversation. Perhaps, Zhou Xian replied, her face showing some impatience, unsure if it was because of Long Qing or Jiang Qiong. Guan clenched the fate-determining pen in his hand and after hesitating for a moment said, no, I can't abandon him. He sees me as a father, how could I banish him? So what if there's a great karma? Maybe by the day I die he will not have faced his karmic retribution yet. Looking at Gu An's determined face, Zhou Xiaoyu felt frustrated. Why was this man so stubborn? What if he brings catastrophe to the entire Medicine Valley or even to the Supreme Sect? Zhou Xiaoyu asked with suppressed anger. Guan said sternly, your karma is not simple either. If you encountered trouble, would I have to avoid you to prevent misunderstandings? Impossible. I can't do it. I Guan am not that kind of person. His words rang with conviction, causing Zhou Xiaoyu's expression to soften. Indeed, women will be women, always finding an excuse to get going. Guan was sure that Zhou Xiaoyu was simply jealous of Jiang Qiong. Zhou Xiaoyu huffed, you always say nice things. If that day really comes, I bet you'll run faster than anyone. Guan clutched his chest, feigning heartache and said, you actually think that of me? Zhou Xiaoyu couldn't help but smother a laugh, giving him a look. She walked beside Guan, a book appearing in her hand which she placed on the table. Guan fixed his eyes on it. It only had one character. Dragon. Zhou Xiaoyu explained, this is a book I dreamed of in my past life. The Reincarnation Path Emperor was even holding it. It records the evolution of a family clan. You like this kind of book, don't you? Take a look but do not spread it around. Guan couldn't help asking, dragon? It wouldn't be related to Long Qing, would it? Zhou Xiaoyu did not elaborate and turned to leave. When she closed the door this time she wasn't as forceful, gently shutting it. Chapter 375. Reincarnation. The mysterious senior brother Zhou Xiaoyu left, and Guan sat down, picked up the book she had left behind and began to read. Soon he became immersed in it. This book mainly recorded the legend of Long Xian, the old ancestor of the dragon family, who was known as the Dragon Emperor, the strongest in the universe. He established the battle court, swept through great heaven and earth and traversed reincarnation. There was no mention of Long Zhan in the book, as if Long Xian was the primordial ancestor of the dragon family. Starting from Long Xian generation by generation, the dragon family produced many glorious individuals. One of the masters of the Reincarnation Path Emperor was from the dragon family, which was also the origin of Ji family's heavenly dragon demon suppressing form. In the end, during its prime, the dragon family encountered oppression from a mysterious existence. The book speculated it might be a curse, or maybe a punishment from heavenly Tao because the dragon family acted recklessly and arrogantly in their strength. They had merits but also sins. The dragon family declined rapidly, the clan dissolved, and the descendants fled to different universes. From the establishment of the dragon family to their prosperity and then to their downfall, the story was poignant and stirring, leaving an endless aftertaste. The author did not comment on the dragon family, but continued to narrate the rise and fall of the dragon family from an objective perspective. After finishing the book, Guan also felt quite emotional. Before Long Xian, the dragon family had also experienced such cycles of reincarnation under the leadership of Long Zhan. From the content of the book, Long Xian re-established the dragon family and rebuilt the battle court after Long Zhan's death, for Long Xian was very strong from the beginning. Guan thought of the last meeting between Long Zhan and Long Xian, where the father and son parted ways. Long Xian did not understand Long Zhan's actions, but in the end, Long Xian chose to inherit Long Zhan's legacy and re-establish the dragon family and the battle court, which made him feel the longing Long Xian had for Long Zhan. Eons passed, and whether it was Long Xian or the dragon family, all had become a thing of the past and were being erased. On the path of immortal cultivation, how high must one reach to truly achieve immortality, to exist eternally? Guan turned his head to look out the window at the sky, his thoughts drifting. It wasn't until the evening that he put the book away and then got up to go downstairs. Just as he went downstairs, he heard Long Qing shouting at a distance. That kid was over 100 years old, yet still acted like a child. Guan smiled and then approached the blood prison great saint, letting him carry him to patrol the third medicine valley. Master, that kid Long Qing is becoming more and more presumptuous. Can you raise my cultivation level? Otherwise, you'll be bullied to death by him. And what about the white spirit rat? That fat rat is getting faster and faster, but its cultivation level hasn't improved much, and it can't even speak human words. Blood prison great saint spoke with a tone of grievance. He was of the Mahayana realm, how could he be bullied by Long Qing? Guan wanted to say that it was normal for you to not win against Long Qing, who was born in the Nirvana realm. Do not compare yourself with others. Everyone has their own path. You should look to the future, Guan said earnestly. Blood prison great saint's eyes lit up and he was immediately invigorated. Did his master's words mean he would be a focus of cultivation in the future? The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He stopped thinking about being bullied by Long Qing and the white spirit rat and started to fantasize about dominating the world. He wanted to become the strongest great saint under the heavens, sweeping across the land. If outsiders from outer heaven attacked and he was not an opponent, then the master would take action, shocking all beings. Just thinking about it was thrilling. On the surface, he would be the strongest and enemies would conspire against him. Who would have thought that there would be an even more terrifying existence behind him? On a resplendent golden palace, the holy minister was sitting on a chair, with steps behind him leading up to an empty throne. A row of figures stood in the hall. Among them was the Candle World Saint King, who had once been responsible for negotiating with the Dark Battle Emperor. Yang Jian stood beside the Candle World Saint King, dressed in silver battle armor with a three-pointed two-bladed knife floating behind him. Even though his realm was not as high as those around him, his aura was substantial. All the figures in the hall were holy kings of the holy court, and they were not too restrained in front of the holy minister. The holy minister's gaze swept over the 17 holy kings, paused on Yang Jian for 2 breaths and then moved away. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you haven't forgotten the calamity of the heavenly demon from 50 years ago, the holy minister said nonchalantly. A burly holy king immediately replied, "It wasn't long ago, how could we forget? Whatever it is, holy minister, just give the order. His Majesty once said in his absence we were to listen to you." The other holy kings voiced their concurrence. Yang Jian remained silent, but his gaze was on the holy minister. The holy minister showed a smile and said, "That chaos was certainly just a precursor. Yunshu ancestor from the Immortal dynasty opened the reincarnation vortex, which still hangs high in the sky. I wish to dispatch you into the vortex to find His Majesty. Who knows what year you will return when you leave? Take time to consider it." Upon hearing these words, the holy king's expressions shifted slightly. That reincarnation vortex was not under the control of the holy court, and no one knew what lay within. The hall fell silent with no one immediately agreeing. The holy minister was not in a hurry, patiently waiting. He raised his right hand and a golden light orb condensed in his palm. He stared at the golden orb as if peeking into something. "I will go." A voice rang out, not loud but firm in tone, causing the holy kings to turn their heads to look. The speaker was Yang Jian. A holy king taunted, "That makes sense, the Candle World Saint King just went through reincarnation. Who could be more suitable?" The Candle World Saint King glanced at Yang Jian, deep in thought. The holy minister, still staring at the golden light orb in his hand, asked indifferently, "Anyone else?" "I will go," the Candle World Saint King said. These holy kings were astonished, having not expected him to agree. It wasn't his usual style of conduct. Yang Jian also glanced at the Candle World Saint King. The holy minister nodded and continued waiting. Realizing the holy minister was still waiting, the holy kings sensed something and their faces turned unsightly. One of the holy kings asked, "Holy minister, must we agree?" "It's entirely voluntary." The words of the holy minister allowed the holy kings to breathe a sigh of relief. But then the holy minister's voice rose again. "I assume you are all voluntarily going? I haven't misjudged you, have I?" The holy kings were shocked and looked at the holy minister in disbelief. As for Yang Jian, his expression remained calm as if he had already foreseen this turn of events. The holy minister raised his right hand, and the golden orb in his hand burst into a dazzling light, making his expression seem even colder. "You must go to reincarnation. For you, it is an opportunity, your chance to strike at higher realms. Of course, the premise is that you survive. In reincarnation, there are countless great powers experiencing reincarnation tribulations. Act with extra caution and do not disturb those unrelated to the holy court. The holy ministers in different tones set this matter in stone, leaving the holy king's faces extremely unsightly. In the depths of autumn, inside the mansion courtyard, Guan was drinking wine, while Xiaochuan swept the grounds nearby. With so many servants in the house and you being able to cast spells, why bother to sweep the grounds yourself? Guan asked, his divine thought gazing skyward. He saw 17 figures from the holy court flying toward the reincarnation vortex, among them Zhou Xian. These people threw themselves into the reincarnation vortex without hesitation, and immediately after their presences completely vanished, which piqued Guan's interest in the reincarnation vortex. What exactly is reincarnation like inside there? As Xiaochuan swept, he laughed and said, "Isn't this just a habit I've picked up? It's what you taught me, brother." Guan turned to Xiaochuan and asked, "Have you not cultivated these years?" Xiaochuan's cultivation level had stagnated for decades, and his lifespan had shown no sign of increasing. Old age makes it hard to persist. Besides, my children and grandchildren often bring me troublesome matters, Xiaochuan said with a shake of his head and a wry smile. He added, "I'm 472 years old this year. I'm content. I never imagined I would live for so many years." He began to recount tales from his childhood. Each time Guan visited, Xiaochuan would reminisce about the past. On this occasion, however, Guan wasn't listening attentively, his thoughts were wandering. Seeing Zhou Xian and the others enter reincarnation, a bold idea suddenly came to him. If he sealed Xiaochuan's memories and then implanted a destruction Dao seal into his body, no matter what kind of reincarnation he underwent, Guan would be able to find him. When the time came, he could help him recover his memories. Wouldn't they be able to reunite? He had tried his best to impart the traditions of immortal cultivation to Xiaochuan, but alas, Xiaochuan's maximum lifespan still increased very slowly. Even though he could elevate Xiaochuan's cultivation level, it didn't affect his maximum lifespan. The higher he reached in realm, the more acutely Guan felt the terrifying decree of the ineffable destiny. "Xiaochuan, if there is an afterlife, would you still want me to find you?" Guan suddenly asked. Xiaochuan stopped his sweeping, turned his head to look at Guan and cheerfully said, "Brother, if you could find me, you must have become an immortal, right? If you don't mind, I would indeed hope to see you again. But don't worry about it too much. Everyone has their destiny. I'm truly only grateful to you." Without Guan, what would his life be like today? His only regret in this life was that he failed to repay his mentor. "I'm just speaking hypothetically. If I become that powerful one day, I would need to consider whether or not to help you escape the suffering of reincarnation," Guan said with a laugh. Xiaochuan responded with laughter, "If there's a chance for that, I would definitely want it. So, let me thank you in advance for taking care of me, brother." Becoming an immortal? How distant a dream. Xiaochuan had heard of the existence of the immortal path realm, but he had not heard of those who possessed eternal life, nor had he heard of the true immortal gods. Those who were comparable to immortals were nothing more than powerful cultivators. If you undergo reincarnation, in what kind of family would you wish to be born in the next life? Guan continued to ask as he poured himself another drink. Xiaochuan took interest, set aside the broom, walked over and sat down, starting to ponder as he sank into reverie. His requirements were not high, born to parents that could accompany him and hopefully with better aptitude for cultivation. Sunset gave way to moonrise. The two talked into the night, and at Xiaochuan's invitation, Guan stayed at the estate. He left at dawn. Xiaochuan, assisted by a young girl, watched Guan depart. The girl, filled with curiosity, watched Guan's retreating figure. She turned her head to Xiaochuan and asked, "Great-grandfather, who exactly is he? Is he really your mentor? He looks so young." Xiaochuan stroked his beard and laughed. "Yes, he's my mentor. But as to who he really is, I'm not sure myself. My mentor is very mysterious, maybe," the girl pressed. "Maybe what?" Xiaochuan shook his head and walked away. As Guan disappeared at the end of the street, the girl hurriedly followed her great-grandfather, pressing him with questions. Chapter 376. The Smallness of Heaven and Earth. Noon. Tinya Valley. Guan rode upon the blood prison Great Saint toward the mouth of the valley, with an Exan following close by. This was not the first time Guan had brought an Exan to Xianxia Valley, but every time she came she was very happy, primarily because the 3 monkey demons of Xianxia Valley had a good relationship with her, and she had specially brought along many pastries. From a distance, Luo Han caught sight of Guan and a smile spread across his face as he went to greet him. Guan, His Majesty brought someone back with him, someone who came especially to find you. Guess who it is? Luo Han arrived beside the blood prison great saint and asked with a smile. Guan already knew of the person's arrival, but since the other party practiced a certain energy-concealing sorcery, he did not want to point it out directly, so he asked with a puzzled look, "Who? Am I familiar with them?" Luo Han smiled mysteriously and said, "Since you can't guess, let's go have a look." Guan nodded. With Luo Han leading the way, they made their way to a courtyard. Before even entering the courtyard, Guan heard the laughter of Li Xiandao. As soon as the blood prison great saint stepped into the courtyard, Guan's gaze fell on the person beside Li Xiandao. Wuxia Void Crossing Realm, 3rd layer 469/1800/4200. After many years apart, Wuxia had reached the Void Crossing Realm. Such progress at his age could indeed be considered incredibly swift. The current Wuxia still looked like a monk, but he was not wearing a kasaya. Instead, he donned a brocaded robe that restrained his body, and there was a certain commanding presence about him that the young monk of the past didn't possess. Upon seeing Guan, Wuxian's face showed excitement. He stood up, somewhat at a loss for what to do. Guan dismounted and approached the table to salute Li Xiandao, followed by an Exan whose eyes were filled with curiosity. "Senior brother, Wuxia looked at Guan, suddenly at a loss for words. Guan looked at him, eyes widening in astonishment as he asked, "You're Wuxia?" Wuxia hurriedly nodded. Just as he was about to say something, Li Xiandao interrupted with a smile. "Let's sit down and talk." He motioned to an Exan with his hand, indicating for her to sit down as well. Luo Han didn't stay in the courtyard, leading the blood prison great saint away to not disturb the 4 of them. "I really didn't recognize you just now, you've changed so much. How have these years treated you? I heard before that you've achieved miracle after miracle under His Majesty's command." Guan asked warmly, easing Wuxian's awkwardness as the master and disciple caught up with each other. Wuxia was originally a spy planted by the Thousand Autumn Pavilion inside the Supreme Sect. The Daoist expansion skill, the precursor to the primordial reincarnation skill, was transmitted to Guan by him. Centuries had gone by, and with the power of the Daoist expansion skill, Wuxian's maximum lifespan had reached 4,200 years. It seemed that Wuxian's own talent was not lacking, but it was only because he practiced the Daoist expansion skill that it had not been revealed. In the past, the Taizong continent was so backward that even the mystic heart realm was rarely seen. The fact that Wuxia encountered an immortal seeking Taoist of the Nirvana realm at a young age proved his exceptional chi fortune. An Exan sat obediently to the side, listening attentively to her master and grandmaster catching up, curious about Wuxia. Li Xiandao did not interrupt, listening to their conversation with a smile. Guan silently reflected on Li Xuando's talent. Li Xiandao now had reached the 5th layer of the mystic heart realm, surpassing LV Baiyin, yet his public cultivation level, like Guan's, only appeared as that of the nascent soul realm. After a while, Wuxia turned to look at Li Xiandao, who spoke with a smile. "In planning to send him to an immortal mansion for cultivation, Guan, would you like to go?" Guan shook his head. "I'd rather not, thank you for the gracious offer, uncle." That so-called immortal mansion was, after all, similar to the factions like the Star Sea congregations. He was not interested in it. Li Xiandao was not surprised. Over the years he had offered many opportunities to Guan, all of which were rejected. He understood that this young man had no desire to seek immortality. "Senior brother, let's go together, it's a rare opportunity. Now that I've achieved the cultivation level of the Void Crossing Realm, I can surely protect you," Wuxia urged. An Exan wanted to laugh upon hearing this. Was the Void Crossing Realm really that strong? She did not show it on her face, as Guan had reminded her many times to control her facial expressions. Guan laughed. "I really don't want to go, I'm quite comfortable now. Going to the Immortal Mansion would surely be stressful, and it's not certain that I would undergo a transformation. You go ahead, I'll be here waiting for you to tell me about your experiences in the Immortal Mansion when you return." Despite Wuxian's continued persuasion, it was to no avail. No matter how much he insisted, Guwen remained unmoved. If you don't want to go, then don't. It's fine, staying in the Supreme Sect also offers plenty of opportunities, Li Xiandao said, putting an end to Wuxian's urging. Li Xiandao then looked at Guwen and asked, Guwen, what do you think the Taizong dynasty should do next for its development? Guwen asked in surprise, isn't everything fine now? Why do you ask? Li Xiandao shook his head, it only seems fine on the surface. The internal class structure is solidifying. Life may be better than before, but the opportunities for commoners to knock on the doors of the immortal sects have not increased. Guwen fell silent. Each year the number of cultivators in the immortal cultivation world grows, but the vast majority are from families of cultivators. It's highly likely that a farmer's offspring will remain a farmer. Wuxia also fell into deep thought as he served Li Xiandao. He saw even more issues. The current families were able to establish contacts overseas, and through various means such as intermarriage, sworn brotherhood, and exchange of interests, they were quickly growing stronger with unfathomable depths, making it difficult for Li Xiandao to suppress them. Who knows how powerful the entities backing those families could be? I do admire the Immortal dynasty. If only all of the Taizong dynasty's citizens could become immortals, that would be wonderful. I wonder if he'll live to see that day, Li Xiandao said cheerfully. He was just being precautious. For now his imperial power was quite stable. Guwen continued the conversation, if that day really comes, who knows how long it will take. His tone was filled with emotion. He began to talk with Li Xiandao about the future visions, while Wuxia occasionally interjected and an Exin listened throughout. Gradually the topic shifted to Li Ye. After discussing Li Ye for a while, Li Xiandao asked, what about Yang Jian? It's been a while since we've seen him. Ling Tian often talks to me about him. I'm not sure where he's gone, but with his talent he probably won't encounter any trouble, Guwen said, shaking his head. Wuxia asked curiously, brother, I heard from His Majesty that Yang Jian's talent is no less than an Hao's? Guwen smiled and said, I'm not sure about that. They are both stronger than me anyway. You can ask an Exin, she grew up with an Hao. As he spoke he gestured towards an Exin beside him, which made Wuxia take a new look at her. Could it be that this woman had such a connection? An Exin hurriedly said, I'm not in a position to judge, but my brother once said he looks forward to a battle with Yang Jian. Wuxia sighed, my cultivation speed is considered fast, but compared to those favored by heaven, it's still far behind. I wonder what their cultivation levels are now. Li Xiandao looked at an Exin, then glanced at Guwen, contemplative. The four of them chatted for an ancient hour before Guwen, accompanied by an Exin, stood up to pick herbs. Once they finished they said their farewells and left. Wuxia watched Guwen retreating back, his eyes brimming with melancholy. Li Xiandao smiled and asked, what's the matter? Do you feel the relationship has become distant? Wuxia replied, a little, but it's more about regret. With brother's temperament, I'm afraid he won't rise to become an immortal, alas. In years past, Guwen had seemed so formidable in his eyes. Now he himself had a cultivation level of the void-crossing realm, while Guwen had only reached the nascent soul realm, which left a bitter taste in his mouth. He wished for his brother's cultivation level to always be higher than his so that they could travel the path of immortal cultivation together. How many years could one live in the nascent soul realm? Don't underestimate him. Perhaps he's hiding something, Li Xiandao said with a meaningful tone. Wuxia, surprised, asked, hiding? What do you mean? Li Xiandao said slowly, the last time I saw an Exin was 20 years ago. In these 20 years her cultivation has increased very slowly, but my intuition tells me that her progress has been significant. Perhaps they are also practicing your Daoist expansion skill. But the Daoist expansion skill can only lift restrictions once in a lifetime. If brother has reached the nascent soul realm, it must mean he has already lifted his restriction. Wuxia frowned. Li Xiandao did not continue the conversation. He was reminiscing about the golden Dao patterns on Guwen's forehead. He had once seen another person with similar Dao patterns whose Dao level was unfathomably deep. Elsewhere, Guwen had overheard Li Xiandao and the others' conversation, but he did not mind since his apparent cultivation level was only at the nascent soul realm, and others could speculate as they wished. Time flies swiftly by. 20 years blinked past. The Xiaochuan family was in mourning and Guwen stood on the roof eaves, invisible to anyone. He watched Xiaochuan's soul rise from the memorial hall, drifting toward the sky. Today was just the 7th day since Xiaochuan's death. Xiaochuan kept descending, looking down at the people inside the Xiaochuan residence. His face held no sorrow, instead it bore a smile. Is this what it feels like to be reincarnated? Xiaochuan pondered silently. Over the past 7 days his soul had been unable to stray too far from his body, causing him to wander within the Xiaochuan residence the entire time. Now losing control over his soul body, he could feel an invisible force pulling at him from the ether. He wasn't afraid but rather looked forward to his next life. He gazed far into the distance but did not see Guan, a flash of regret passing through his eyes. Gradually he drifted higher and higher from the ground. Once he could see the entire Taizong continent, he saw countless other souls rising alongside him, a spectacular scene that broadened his horizons. So the Taizong continent is this tiny. I wonder where the supreme sect is located. Xiaochuan muttered to himself. From his current vantage point, the Taizong continent was just a small piece of land in the boundless ocean, insignificant. What, you still wish to visit the supreme sect once? A voice entered Xiaochuan's ear. Xiaochuan's eyes widened as he instinctively turned to look, his expression turning to astonishment. There was Guan appearing beside him and ascending alongside. Brother, you, Xiaochuan started in shock, unable to complete his sentence. Guan turned to him and asked, now, do you have any regrets about not striving harder in cultivation before? After hearing this, Xiaochuan calmed down and smiled. Regrets? Seeing this scene sooner has only shown me how minute I really am. He looked at Guan, hesitated for a moment and then asked, brother, what is your relationship with Sword Venerable Fudao? Could it be that you are Sword Venerable Fudao? In Xiaochuan's eyes, Guan seemed so mystical at that moment, with golden Dao patterns on his forehead flickering like flames and the immortal king crown shining peculiarly, making Guan look akin to an immortal lord descending. Chapter 377. Promise of the Next Life. Facing Xiaochuan's questioning, Guan counter-questioned, is this matter very important to you? Xiaochuan caught the implied meaning in Guan's words and lamented, yes, it's no longer important. In fact, 300 years ago I felt my life was drawing close to its end. Over the years, I have often fallen into an indescribable state of sudden enlightenment. It must have been you, elder brother, secretly helping me. Thank you, elder brother. He looked at Guan, his expression solemn. Guan's mouth twitched upwards as he asked, just verbal thanks? Xiaochuan replied helplessly, that's all I can do. What else could I do for you now? If elder brother needs my soul, just take it. Guan glanced at him and said dryly, making it sound like elder brother is some demon cultivator. Wasn't Sword Venerable Fudao initially considered a demon cultivator? Coincidentally, I do have a soul device here. I could use you as the main soul, condemning you to never transcend. Sure, I would love that. Although Xiaochuan still looked elderly, his soul body was spirited as if he had returned to his younger days. The two bickered in this way as they drew closer to the reincarnation vortex. The reason Xiaochuan could see Guan was because Guan had utilized the power of cause and effect. Even a free immortal could not see Guan if they were here. After a long time, Xiaochuan looked up at the imposing reincarnation vortex and curiously asked, does entering there mean I will be reincarnated? Yes, that's correct. I can only escort you here, Guan replied softly, also looking up. Xiaochuan turned to Guan and said, elder brother, go back now. I'm already satisfied that you could escort me here. Guan gazed at him and with a smile said, well, meet in the next life. The next life. Xiaochuan blinked his eyes. He didn't question Guan's words but internally marveled, how profound must Sword Venerable Fudao's Dao be to see through reincarnation? After pondering for a moment he said, if I remain mediocre in my next life, elder brother, don't find me. Let me lead an ordinary life. However, if one day I possess exceptional cultivation talents, then come find me and I'll still manage Medicine Valley for you. Guan smiled and nodded, then raised his right hand and pointed 2 fingers toward Xiaochuan. Xiaochuan was instantly immobilized, his eyes losing their sparkle. Guan used his own power of cause and effect to seal Xiaochuan's memories, to prevent them from being erased by reincarnation, then left a Destruction Dao seal within his soul body. The Destruction Dao seal would leave an eternal mark, making it easier for Guan to find Xiaochuan's reincarnated body later. Having done all this, Guan paused and watched as Xiaochuan headed towards the reincarnation vortex. He also had a basic understanding of the reincarnation rules. Long John's heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma touched upon these rules, but it mainly relied on establishing connections through cause and effect with past lives. He still couldn't fathom the essence of reincarnation. In the divine origin great heaven and earth, there also wasn't a complete order of reincarnation. After death, a soul would ascend and fly to outer heaven, being devoured by reincarnation rules at a certain height, disappearing without a trace. How one naturally reincarnated was unknown to anyone and was difficult to trace. However, great beings of fortune would cause unusual phenomena in heaven and earth when reincarnated. After Xiaochuan had disappeared into the reincarnation vortex, Guan finally returned to the Third Medicine Valley. Several days later, near midday as Guan was reading a book inside his house, an Exen came to find him. Master, Uncle Xiaochuan has passed away. He didn't want to trouble you, so he had his descendants deliver this letter later. An Exen handed over a letter to Guan while carefully observing his expression. In front of an Exen, Guan did not need to pretend. He took the letter directly and opened it to read. The content of the letter wasn't much different from what Xiaochuan had said before he entered reincarnation, but after reading it, Guan still felt somewhat melancholic. He had tried his best to help Xiaochuan, but unfortunately, Xiaochuan did not possess the fighting spirit like Yi Lan Zhenqin or an Exen. To put it accurately, Xiaochuan's talents were inferior and no different from most ordinary people, which was why it was hard for him to maintain his drive. Guan, however, wasn't too saddened. After learning about the existence of reincarnation tribulation, his aversion to reincarnation wasn't as strong. When cultivators reached the free immortal realm, they ultimately had to face reincarnation. Not everyone could break through by evolving their lifespan like Guan, and he couldn't use his lifespan to help others skip their reincarnation tribulation. He was curious about reincarnation tribulation, wondering if it only counted after reaching the free immortal realm or if previous reincarnations counted as well. It was said that reincarnation tribulation had no pattern. Reincarnation might not necessarily occur in the current era or world, which was why it was hard to trace Xianxia's whereabouts. Guan put the letter down and looked at an Exen asking, "Is there anything else?" An Exen inquired, "Pastor, are you doing all right?" Guan smiled and said, "What, do I really need to drown my sorrows in alcohol? Hurry back to your cultivation. I don't want to receive your last letter." Hearing this, an Exen stuck out her tongue and immediately bowed to take her leave. Guan thought for a moment, stood up and walked over to a bookshelf to take down a brocade box, placing Xiaochuan's last letter inside it. Xiaochuan's death hadn't affected Guan's life, even though his descendants were still in the Third Medicine Valley. His descendants weren't too saddened after all, there was a vast generational gap. As autumn gave way to winter, the temperature between heaven and earth began to drop. On this day, Guan had finished picking the most recently matured medicinal herbs in the Third Medicine Valley. He was in good spirits. Nowadays his average annual lifespan income exceeded 3,500,000 years. He wasn't in a hurry to unlock the feature associated with a 10 billion year lifespan. He wouldn't wait anymore if his lifespan was sufficient for a breakthrough later. After all, the figure of 10 billion was really massive. He surely couldn't start stealing medicinal herbs again, could he? Returning under the attic, Guan gave a few instructions to his disciple before heading towards the chess area. More and more people were taking up chess, and as the birthplace of chess and Go, the Third Medicine Valley naturally attracted many enthusiasts. Playing chess in the Third Medicine Valley always felt special for cultivators. At this moment, Nine-Finger Divine Lord was demolishing opponents left and right. Guan approached from the back of the crowd and watched from a distance. His attention was drawn to a man nearby. The man, who had only reached the nascent soul realm, wore a blue Daoist robe and was not particularly handsome. Xianxia, nascent soul realm level 3681/1100/1800. His maximum lifespan wasn't high, yet for some reason, Guan was inexplicably drawn to him from the first glance. Xianxia felt Guan's gaze and turned his head, nodding slightly. Guan approached and asked with a smile, "Daoist friend, you seem unfamiliar, is this your first time here?" Xianxia answered, "I just arrived at Supreme Sect a few days ago. I came specifically for Go. This trip was worthwhile, the level of skill here is very high." While speaking, he turned his head to look forward fervently and said, "I estimate I only have a 30% chance of winning against this senior." His gaze was fixed on Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, and his words irritated Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord turned back to look at Xianxia and said, 30%? You cheeky boy, so arrogant. Take the next game, I'll make sure you don't leave a single piece on the board. Faced with the challenge from Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, Xianxia was not intimidated but instead showed an eager expression. Guan watched Xianxia fervently, seemingly deep in thought, his eyes revealing a hint of fascination. Chapter 378. The talent of a heavenly pride. Guan sensed an extraordinary reincarnation aura emanating from Xianxia. He speculated that Xianxia had reincarnated and wasn't just any ordinary reincarnation but bore some similarity to Ji Xiaoyu. Could it be that Xianxia was a great power currently undergoing a reincarnation tribulation? Guan pondered this in his mind but did not continuously stare at Xianxia. After a while, the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord successfully defeated his opponent and immediately waved to Xianxia. This fellow actually claimed to have a 30% chance of winning against him. To him, this was an outright provocation. A nascent soul realm cultivator daring to fantasize about winning against him? Did he think he was Guan? Under the encouragement of a group of cultivators, Xianxia walked to the chess table, sat down and started to play chess with the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who allowed him the first move. A fierce battle thus began. Guan watched for a while before moving to the side to find others to play chess with. Whether Xianxia could win against the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord or not, Guan didn't care. He just wanted to relax for a while. Half an hour later, Guan had won 2 consecutive games of chess and stood up to leave. Xianxia and the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord were still playing. At that moment, Xianxia furrowed his eyebrows, hesitating over his moves, while the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord wore a smug smile, mockingly criticizing his slow play, accusing him of trying to wear out his opponent. Guan smiled and walked toward the distant mystic pure tree. The white spirit rat was napping under the tree, while an Xen was practicing qi absorption cultivation. This tree had become their fixed cultivation spot, which other disciples couldn't enjoy unless they performed exceptionally well. Approximately 30 minutes passed. Xianxia put down his chess piece and said, I lost. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, smiling smugly, said, To beat me, you'd need another 100,000 years. Xianxia stood up, bowed to him and then took his leave. Losing interest, the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord stood up, making room for others. The audience wasn't too shocked. After all, the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord was the second-best chess player in the Medicine Valley, second only to the founder. Guan. Xianxia began wandering around the valley, moving along the wooden railing, admiring the orderly, splendid medicine gardens. A figure brushed past him, causing a slight change in his expression. He turned his head to look. Long Qing was walking briskly towards Xianxia, not noticing him. This aura. The Dragon Clan. Xianxia murmured softly, though his voice was quite faint. Guan, who was nearby playing with the white spirit rat, heard it. Guan kept his composure, but his curiosity about Xianxia's true identity grew. Xianxia watched Long Qing leave. He did not linger for too long but chose to continue his stroll. Gradually he passed by the venerable pavilion of Guan. The door opened and a figure suddenly blocked his path. Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Seeing the suddenly appearing Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, Xianxia was not frightened but instead studied him. With a cold expression on his face and a shift in his divine thought, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor formed a barrier around them, ensuring no one but Guan could hear their conversation. Who are you? The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor asked sternly. Smiling, Xianxia responded, Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor, since you are here, I presume one of the Yin Yang Four Emperors, the Reincarnation Path Emperor, has also reincarnated here? As soon as these words were spoken, a murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Xianxia continued, There's no need to be tense. The Reincarnation Path Emperor's undergoing of the Reincarnation Tribulation is already public knowledge, and the Holy Court will not intervene. Hearing this, the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's expression softened. He inhaled deeply and asked, May I know the elder's name? Shaking his head, Xianxia replied, I will not tell you my background to avoid bringing trouble to you and the Reincarnation Path Emperor. Today I came here merely for chess. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor fell silent for a moment, then stepped aside, no longer blocking Xianxia. Xianxia stepped forward, walking past him. the chief fortune of this medicine valley is on the verge of erupting. Tell the Reincarnation Path Emperor, since he has entered the reincarnation tribulation, not to cling to the mortal dust, as the biggest taboo in the reincarnation tribulation is trying to be a savior. Leaving these words behind, Xianxia walked away without turning back. Guan, hearing this, reduced his interest in Xianxia by a notch. Xianxia actually mistook Zhou Xiaoyu for Sword Venerable Fudao. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor didn't argue for Zhou Xiaoyu and quickly disappeared from the spot. In the time that followed, Xianxia toured the third Medicine Valley and then flew toward the Outer Gate City. Seeing that Xianxia had no intention of causing trouble, Guan stopped paying attention to him. Most days in the third Medicine Valley were uneventful. Occasionally encountering a being of extraordinary origin was just a minor episode in Guan's life. 12 years later. Boom. A figure descended from the sky, crashing into the forest, creating a terrifying wind that uprooted several trees, sending grass and debris flying. Dressed in white, an Exan landed on a tree trunk. She held a treasure sword, looking up with furrowed brows, her hand trembling as she gripped the sword. In the distance, the blood prison great saint crawled on the cliff, enduring the fierce wind, his gaze fixed on a distant battle. Guan stood in the air holding the Qinghong sword, looking down at an Exan with a smile. Is this all you've got? On hearing this, a cold light flashed in Nzin's eyes. She took a step forth, appearing behind Guan like a blink, her treasure sword cleaving horizontally, the strong sword intent materializing tangibly. Guan drew his sword with a backhanded grip, blocking Nzin's sword intent and following the blade's direction, scattering the distant sea of clouds. Seeing that an Xian from the 9th level of the Divinity Transformation Realm could manifest such sword intent, Guan was secretly pleased. The girl had cultivated diligently and it was not in vain. Just her sword intent alone was comparable to the void-crossing realm. Combined with her stepping path of age's step, her strength far surpassed the Divinity Transformation Realm and she was starting to show the makings of a prodigy. When an Exan found that her sword intent couldn't shake Guan, she stepped again and appeared above the forest several kilometers away, her treasure sword no longer in hand. Her eyes narrowed and she pointed at Guan with her right hand's finger, turned into a sword. Boom! A dominant, vast sword intent descended from the sky. Guan looked up and saw a beam of light that seemed to slash down from outer heaven. The beam erupted with sword chi, forming a brilliant sword shadow 100 meters long. It was a magnificent sight. Guan's lips curved up. The girl had finally mastered it. His repeated preachings over the years were not in vain. The brilliant sword shadow fell with incredible speed, engulfing Guan's figure and then crashing into the mountains and rivers. The ground shook, clouds of dust rose rapidly, and fierce winds ravaged everything in all directions. It was like the apocalypse, shaking the entire vast island. Blood Prison Great Saint watched, his heart secretly startled. He too recognized that Nzin's sword intent had surpassed the Divinity Transformation Realm. The master had really raised this girl well. In that moment, Blood Prison Great Saint became even more convinced that the ancient treasure body possessed by Yangjian was bestowed by his master. An Exan gasped for breath, the winds tossing her hair. She kept her gaze fixed ahead, not believing her swordsmanship could hurt her mentor. She was on the alert for her mentor's sudden reappearance. Snap! Suddenly, a hand landed on Nzin's shoulder, making her heart leap and her formidable presence scatter. Guan withdrew his hand and smiled. Not bad, today's performance finally satisfied me. You are worthy to chase after Hauer and Jenner. An Exan turned her head and saw her mentor's smiling face. Suppressing her palpitations, she forced a smile and said, "It's all thanks to your excellent teaching, mentor. They never received such devoted guidance from you." She suddenly remembered a legend from the Supreme Sect. It was said that before Sword Venerable Fudao killed someone, he liked to pat their shoulder. She had thought it a mere rumor before, but now it seemed otherwise. Too terrifying. Just being patted like that made her feel suffocated. The terror of feeling her soul scatter was beyond comparison. Gu unsheathed the Qinghong sword and turned to an Exan saying, "You lack a suitable sword, but I will not help you find one. Use your sword intent to temper your own sword." An Exan wiped the sweat from her forehead and asked, "Sword intent can also temper a sword?" "Of course. When you become powerful enough, your sword can become an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure." Immortal Path Supreme Treasure? And Xin's eyes lit up, her breathing became hurried. With the Taizong continent gradually catching up to the immortal cultivation world, the strength of immortal path supreme treasures sank deep into people's hearts. Such treasures were considered church treasures even overseas, and Li Ya's divine exotic city possessed only a pseudo-immortal path supreme treasure. Thinking about one day tempering her own immortal path supreme treasure, and Xin felt extremely excited. What level of Dao would she have then? She began to look forward to that day. What would Hao's reaction be when he saw her then? Let's go, it's time to head home. Guan flew toward Blood Prison Great Saint, and Xin hurriedly followed. Mentor, you know so much about immortal path supreme treasures, you couldn't be the legendary immortal king, could you? At least you're at the same realm as the immortal king. I guess you are at least at the 7th layer of immortal Dao. No, the 8th? Xian excitedly asked. The existence of the 9 heavens of immortal path had also been known in the continent's immortal cultivation world. She had heard that the most powerful individuals had only reached the 4th layer of immortal Dao. She estimated her mentor's cultivation level as 7th layer, which was already a high estimate. Guan laughed. Not that impressive, I am just a loose immortal. I understand, a loose immortal without a fixed power, right? Xian giggled. The Holy Court had named Sword Venerable Fudao as the Holy Sword, Mortal World Peak named the Mentor as Peak Master. The Supreme Sect even reserved a position in the Venerable Pavilion for the Mentor. And there was also Immortal Seeking Island overseas. She guessed her mentor had even more backgrounds that hadn't been revealed. Guan smiled and remained silent, not bothering to explain. In Xin's eyes, 9 heavens of immortal path was the limit of immortal path. How could he, someone who had surpassed the 9 heavens of immortal path, explain that to her? Summer insects cannot speak of ice. 30 minutes later, Guan rode on Blood Prison Great Saint and returned to 3rd Medicine Valley, with Xin following close behind. Just arrived, Guan sensed a familiar presence. It had been a long time since he had seen this person. Zhou Tongyu. Guan had once written him into Supreme Immortal Venerable as the second protagonist. This man was also one of the foremost geniuses of the Taizong dynasty. After suppressing his power level and losing to Guan, they had formed a friendship. The last time Zhou Tongyu came hoping to defeat Guan, he instead lost to Yang Jian. After losing to Yang Jian at the subsequent Golden List conference, he lost to Wu Ju, helping Wu Ju thoroughly embark on the path of a genius. Since then Guan hadn't seen him. Centuries had passed. Back then, Guan was just at the carefree primordial immortal realm. Time truly flies. Guan had not yet seen Zhou Tongyu, but he was already feeling nostalgic. He dismounted and took Xian to find Zhou Tongyu. Zhou Tongyu was watching people play chess, not noticing Guan's approach. Chapter 379 Cultivation in the Tao Realm. Zhou Tongyu Unification Realm Level 1534/3000/3100. He had actually reached the Unification Realm. It seems he had had some significant opportunities these past years. Unfortunately, his maximum lifespan has not improved. Guan thought to himself as he looked at Zhou Tongji's lifespan. Although Zhou Tongji's maximum lifespan had not improved, if he could reach the Nirvana realm before the age of 3100, he could achieve Nirvana and prolong his life. Guan made his way to Zhou Tongji's side and raised his hand to pat his shoulder, only to be grasped by his right hand. Zhou Tongyu tilted his head to look at Guan, then his stern face showed a look of surprise. He turned around, released Guan's hand and looked him over carefully. Guan thought to himself that allowing Zhou Tongyu to catch his hand was to compensate for his regret, knowing that there were few who could interrupt Sword Venerable Fudao's shoulder-patting motion. Brother Gu, it's been a long time since we've seen each other, you look much better than before. Zhou Tongyu said joyfully. Guan smiled and nodded. Indeed, it's been a long time, shall we find a place to drink? Sure. Guan, hearing his agreement, raised his hand to signal him to walk in a different direction. Xin had met Zhou Tongyu and had also heard about his loss to Yang Jian. She could feel that Zhou Tongji's aura was very strong. If she wanted to surpass Yang Jian, she would have to defeat Zhou Tongyu first. Zhou Tongyu, unaware of what the woman behind him was thinking, had not come to find Guan for the sake of a challenge. He was now over 500 years old, not as petty or stubborn as before, his vision was higher and he was now pursuing something higher. They sat down in a courtyard and Xin started to arrange the food and drinks. Guan and Zhou Tongyu made small talk, each speaking about their own general situation over the past years. After chatting for quite a while, the two laughed and raised their glasses, asking, "Where is Yang Jian? Why don't we see him around? I heard he's been gone for a long time." Guan replied, "When children grow up, they must spread their wings and fly. This medicine valley of mine can't keep him here." After Yang Jian, there were several servant disciples in the third medicine valley who had a maximum lifespan of more than 4,000 years. But Guan did not take on a disciple specially. Instead, he let those disciples with hidden talent go with the flow of the medicine valley. Within the third medicine valley, as long as one performed well, they would inevitably establish their foundation, especially those disciples whose talent had not been unearthed who could benefit even more. Guan was worried about taking on disciples who were reincarnations of great powers or had great fortune of energy movement, which was too troublesome, so he did not take in any more disciples, focusing instead on developing an Xin. That's right, such a genius like him must have a more vast world awaiting his explorations. What about Yi Yan? Has he ever come back? Zhou Tongyu nodded in agreement. He had become acquainted with Guan because Yi Yan practiced the spear, attracting him, and he always remembered Yi Yan. Guan paused for a moment and said, "He has already passed away." Zhou Tongyu was stunned. He did not comfort Guan but poured him a drink, and after clinking their bowls together, they both drained their drinks in one gulp. "In the blink of an eye, we are both over 500 years old. Looking back, so many old friends have gone to the netherworld, and how much further can you and I walk on this immortal cultivation path?" Zhou Tongyu expressed his heartfelt feelings. Over the years he had experienced a lot, and he had come to find Guan because his old friends were few. Guan smiled and said, "With Brother Zhou's talent and capabilities, you will surely enter the immortal path realm and have an immeasurable future. Why such sentimentality?" After listening to this, Zhou Tongyu shook his head and laughed. The two continued to drink. And Xin, seeing that there was nothing concerning her, sensibly left. It was not until the evening that Zhou Tongyu finally bid farewell and left. Guan watched his receding figure, feeling a slight regret in his heart. Why not have a contest? Guan was still thinking about letting an Xin defeat Zhou Tongyu. That would certainly be interesting. But he had calculated that Zhou Tongyu was going to challenge Wuju next and it would attract a lot of attention, then he could go and enjoy the spectacle. In the Immortal dynasty, within a bright hall where clouds and mist surged, the ancient Immortal Emperor sat on the imperial throne, overlooking everyone in the hall with an Hao among them. And Hao was seeing the lord of the Immortal dynasty for the first time, and the regal bearing of the other left him inwardly stunned. How high could this person's Dao level be? And Hao felt invincible just by glancing at him. Without exaggeration, this person definitely had the strongest aura he had ever seen, even better than his masters. He was truly the top of the great heavenly spirit land. The other people in the hall looked at the ancient Immortal Emperor with fervent expressions, as if they could not wait to kneel and worship. The ancient Immortal Emperor slowly spoke. "I have summoned you today and you should understand why. Due to the chaos of the heavenly demons, the Immortal dynasty has discussed with the Holy Court. No matter how we fight, we must not waste the overall power of the great heavenly spirit land, so we have organized this conference, allowing cultivators of both sides in each realm to have combat, and your victories or losses are related to the future development of the Immortal dynasty." Everyone's breathing hastened. They had known about this matter before coming. This conference was not only about the prosperity of the Immortal dynasty but also a great opportunity for themselves. And Hao's eyes sparkled and his fists tightened. Confident in a contest of the same realm, he was determined not to lose. The ancient Immortal Emperor was very pleased with the expressions of everyone in the hall. He saw their confidence. The top 3 in each realm can enter the Holy Court's Tao realm for cultivation, and the first place will even obtain an Immortal Path Supreme treasure that is unaffected by Qi fortune. The ancient Immortal Emperor began to talk about the rewards for the conference, exciting everyone present. Having the ancient Immortal Emperor announce the rewards publicly dispelled the last of their doubts. They had to give it their all. Instead of the rewards, and Hao looked forward to having a sufficiently strong opponent. He and Hao didn't need any supreme treasures. When his realm was high enough, he could dominate the world barehanded. The stronger his opponents, the happier he was. What he pursued was fame. He wanted to make a name for himself in the world. He wanted to make everyone in the supreme sect proud of him. Having reached this point, he felt that he was already capable of representing the supreme sect, even the entire Taizong continent. He wanted those who had lost to him to take pride in their defeat. Controlling the world's holy court, huh? I hope you won't disappoint me. And Hao thought to himself, ignoring the latter part of what the ancient immortal emperor had said, not listening attentively. After a while the crowd dispersed and Hao followed them out of the grand hall. Outside the hall was a spectacular sight above the sea of clouds. Just as Hao was about to fly away, a voice called out to him, "And Hao, the geniuses of the holy court are very strong. I've heard that there's an unprecedented talent in the mystic heart realm, hailed as having talent surpassing that of the holy god. Take this time to cultivate with me." And Hao turned to look. The speaker was a white-dressed woman as beautiful as a fairy with a dignified posture, and her eyes looking towards him were like autumn waters, bright and moving. And Hao frowned and said, "Thank you for your kindness, but there's no need." Having said this, he turned and left. The woman in white stood there, stunned, seemingly not expecting such a decisive rejection from Hao. Whispers from the surrounding immortal spirits arose, curious about Hao's background, to dare to refuse a fairy's request. In the Immortal dynasty, those who could be called fairies not only had to have a background but also a strong cultivation level. And Hao had not even reached the Nirvana realm, which was worse than the lowest ranks of the Immortal dynasty. Some attitude, move forward 200 years, and with such cultivation level he wouldn't even qualify to step into the Immortal dynasty, someone muttered, earning the agreement of those around. The woman in white said nothing and turned to leave alone, completely indifferent to the gazes of others. On his way to the Third Medicine Valley, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint, with an Exen following on the right, excitedly recounting the recent battle between Zhou Tongyu and Wu Ju. That Zhou Tongyu is incredible, his evil-suppressing golden body could actually withstand Wu Ju's fist technique. I thought he had no chance against Wu Ju. Master, is the evil-suppressing golden body considered an ancient treasure body? How could Yang Jian defeat Zhou Tongyu of the same realm? You aren't deceiving me, are you? Listening to Nzin's words, Guan also had many feelings. Zhou Tongyu had won, and he won very dominantly, avenging the shame of his defeat to Wu Ju many years ago. Now it was Wu Ju's turn to taste the fall from the peak of the clouds. Guan did not go to comfort Wu Ju, since the elder of the sect had taken him away to heal after the battle, and he had returned to the Third Medicine Valley after watching the fight. The outcome of a single battle doesn't prove anything. If you don't work hard, you will eventually be surpassed by someone you've defeated. Right now, you have an advantage that others aren't aware of. You know the true cultivation level of no one else while you can find out theirs, Guan said, seizing the moment to teach an Exen. An Exen nodded and replied, "Master, don't worry, I definitely won't become arrogant and complacent." Actually, the evil-suppressing golden body has its shortcomings too. There is a spot at the base of the neck. If it is struck hard, all the chi energy will be dislodged. Guan began to explain the techniques of the recent combat, and an Exen listened attentively. Knowing more was always good. If she ever encountered an enemy with the evil-suppressing golden body in the future, it could come in handy. The Blood Prison Great Saint was also listening seriously, more worried than Nzin's excitement. These guys were growing so fast. The strength exhibited by Zhou Tongyu as well as Wu Ju was surprising. Deserving to be the geniuses of the great heavenly spirit land. The Blood Prison Great Saint was even more looking forward to the coming of the millennium. Guan had said that he would personally teach him how to cultivate at that time. What he needed to do now was to diligently cultivate the innate reincarnation skill, accumulate his cultivation and build up momentum. Although he was a mount, Guan had not treated him harshly. He received just as many elixirs as an Exen. After returning to the Third Medicine Valley, Guan went upstairs alone. Someone was already waiting in the room. Xinzhen. Seeing Xinzhen sitting in his spot, Guan closed the door and asked, "What paintings are you going to show me this time?" He could feel that the atmosphere downstairs had once again become unnatural. Although the change was very subtle, it did not escape his senses. Xinzhen put down the supreme secret records in her hand and said, "I have comprehended a secret technique that can help improve one's talent. Would you like to learn it?" Guan walked over to the table, took back his own copy of the Supreme Secret Records and then asked, "What secret technique? Is it that powerful?" Xinzhen spoke mysteriously, "It's really powerful. I've already practiced it and it truly works. After training with this secret technique, Finding that practicing other skills yields twice the result with half the effort. Guan couldn't help but cast a lifespan detection on her. Xinjin Void Crossing Realm Level 1543/2200/7200. Good lord. Her maximum lifespan had increased to 7,200 years. Guan was surprised. This girl really could gain enlightenment from music, chess, calligraphy and painting. And her cultivation level was also growing fast. Chapter 380 Disaster. Judging by Xinjin's limit lifespan increase, it couldn't be aimed at 9,999 years, could it? As a veteran actor, Gu An's face also involuntarily revealed a strange expression at this moment. He lectured Yi Lan Zhenqin and an Exin, putting in much effort, yet it paled in comparison to Xinjin's limit lifespan increase. Didn't make sense. Could there really be existences favored by the heavenly Tao in this world? Wu Ju was one and so was Xinjin. Both didn't need the help of others and their limit lifespans increased repeatedly on their own. Wait a minute. Guan suddenly realized something and spoke. Is that so? Then relay it to me. Xinjin promptly narrated the secret technique she comprehended, and Guan listened attentively. After a period equivalent to 30 minutes, Xinjin finished her narration and then looked at Guan with pride, awaiting his astonishment. Guan frowned and said, I don't understand. It feels profound. Is it qi cultivation first or cultivating acupoints? Though he said this, in fact he had already seen through this secret technique. This secret technique bore some resemblance to the primordial reincarnation skill. Both touched upon the reincarnation technique. However, for lower realm beings, the reincarnation technique was extremely complex and hard to comprehend. With Gu An's perspective, even letting top-tier geniuses cultivate this technique, it would be difficult for them to succeed in a short amount of time. He inferred that Xinjin first practiced this secret technique 7 years ago. Mastered it in just 7 years? Something was off unless she already knew it from before. Guan combined this with the changes in Xinjin's aura, and his speculation grew ever firmer. Previously such beings were utterly inconspicuous, and now how could multiple appear? Guan thought for a moment. If he were merely a Taoist hidden immortal, it would be hard to see through reincarnation tribulation unless someone like Zhi Xiaoyu, bearing an innate Daoist talisman and continuously awakening memories, made her reincarnation aura increasingly evident. Currently, it seemed Xinjin hadn't awakened any memories. She could only comprehend the cultivation technique. Looking across the world, there were very few beings immersed in reincarnation tribulation. Why did two appear by his side? Excluding Yang Jian as his cultivation level wasn't sufficient, and adding the previously passing Zhang Shi, Guan always felt there was an unseen mighty hand scheming against him. It couldn't just be a coincidence. You don't understand this? You're really dumb. Xinjin retorted with a glare, clearly displeased. It wasn't the response she wanted. Guan indignantly said, Who could understand this? Maybe I should have Ji Xiaoyu come and listen? As soon as Xinjin heard this, she hastily rejected. That won't do. I am only imparting this secret technique to you. You must not teach it to anyone else. Why? There's no why. I'm teaching you because we have a good relationship. I don't care for anyone else. Did you hear me? If you spread it around, I will definitely trouble you. Xinjin raised her fist, threatening him. Guan could only agree, then with a sigh said, If this secret technique is true, then you are indeed amazing, always enlightening the path. Could you be an immortal reincarnated? He deliberately pointed this out, wanting to see Ji Xiaoyu's reaction downstairs. Xinjin bragged with a smile. I've said before that I am definitely the protagonist. The possibility that I am an immortal reincarnated cannot be ruled out. If you want to become immortal in the future, you'll need to cling to my coattails. Guan raised an eyebrow and asked, Really let me cling? No sooner had he asked the question than he regretted it, as the aura from down below underwent a more pronounced change. Xinjin lifted her right leg, placed it on the table and slid her hand along it from the back of her foot to her thigh. Though clothed in long pants, the action was suggestive enough, and she even provocatively looked at Guan. For the first time, Guan noticed Xinjin's legs were really long. No wonder the women in the Supreme Secret records were all long-legged beauties. Come on, it's not like you haven't clung before. Xinjin spoke coyly. Guan's fur bristled upon hearing this, and he quickly retorted, Nonsense, when have I ever clung to your thighs? You deny it? Be bold enough to own up to your actions. It should have been about 400 years ago when you visited my cave and clung to me with all that mushy talk. Thinking about it now, it's downright embarrassing. Xianxia said with feigned annoyance, causing Guan to feel the urge to hit someone. 400 years ago, as if calculating Zhou Xiaoyu's age. He could be sure that Xianxia had said this for the benefit of Zhou Xiaoyu downstairs, as the event she mentioned had never occurred. Oh really? Then how about we do it again now? Guan retorted with a humph. He stood up and walked towards Xianxia. Xianxia looked at him provocatively, and just as he really reached out to touch her leg, she quickly drew back her leg and said, "Forget it, let's talk about serious matters." "No, you've uttered the words. You must follow through." Seeing that Guan was indeed about to pounce, Xianxia quickly said, all right, I was only joking. You're so serious, can't take a tease. Afraid that someone downstairs will hear? Wait a minute, are you worried about the person below? I almost forgot, I was talking nonsense. Our past interactions were nothing but pure. Listening to her insinuating remarks, Guan was about to pat her on the shoulder. Xianxia continued, "Really, I apologize, I was just joking earlier. Don't be mad at me. I was just testing to see if the person below would eavesdrop. I won't make such jokes in the future." Looking at her smile, Guan guessed she had also sensed Zhou Xiaoyu's change of energy. In recent years, Zhou Xiaoyu had achieved a breakthrough to the unification realm in the Supreme Sex Tribulation Crossing field, but Xianxia had only the first level of the Void Crossing Realm cultivation level. How could she have noticed Zhou Xiaoyu's energy change? Guan felt more and more that something was off about Xianxia. He would have to be careful in the future not to show too much in front of her. She wouldn't eavesdrop, and besides, there are restrictions inside the room, Guan replied, sitting back down at the table and shaking his head. You seem to trust her a lot. Nonsense, I watched her grow up. She is destined to become a powerful figure renowned across the world, not some small-minded girl caught up in her emotions. You should learn from her and stop reading those indecent books all day, won't you? Indecent? I wrote a new volume of the Supreme Secret Records especially for you, and this is how you repay me. You've broken my heart. I won't give it to you now. Goodbye. Xianxia stood up, flicked her sleeve and walked away. Guan stood up to stop her and asked, "For real?" Xianxia turned away, pretending to be angry. "All right, I was just joking with you." "I apologize," Guan sighed. "This woman really had her ways, had me apologizing and then turns it right back around." Guan could deduce that her new book was just made up, but he would have preferred to see the original. Flipping through the real pages provides such a sense of experience. Xianxia gave a triumphant smile, pulled a book from her sleeve, and tossed it into Guan's arms before she continued on her way. This creature doesn't close the door when she leaves. How impolite. Holding the latest volume of the Supreme Secret Records, Guan cursed in his mind and then waved his sleeve to close the door. He returned to his seat, placing the book on the table with all solemnity. That the Daoist hidden immortal of his stature should be reading such a book was fortunate that no one knew of his realm. Guan thought himself lucky. It wasn't that he was vulgar. He was cultivating. This was tempering the heart. Reading extensively prevents one from being tied down by women and losing their Daoist heart. After mentally preparing himself, Guan began to flip through the book. Meanwhile, downstairs, Zhou Xiaoyu could not contain her curiosity and used her divine sense to peek at Guan's book, immediately blushing and filled with indignation. This guy. Never mind, I won't bring him along for cultivation, lest he truly becomes a menace someday. Zhou Xiaoyu thought to herself and strived to cast aside her distractions, returning to her cultivation. Chapter 381. Variables. Hidden Spirit Palace. Ever since Xianxia had left, every time Guan saw Zhou Xiaoyu she would ignore him, feigning ignorance. In the days that followed, rumors began to spread in Medicine Valley, suggesting that there was a falling out between the Master and Elder Ji. This led an Exan to inevitably inquire about this matter when she accompanied Guan to Mortal World Peak. Don't gossip, I haven't had any conflict with her. Guan gave an Exan a stern look and spoke without mincing his words. An Exan giggled and did not press further, instead she went to the side to begin her cultivation. At Mortal World Peak she did not need to hide her cultivation level, so she cherished the opportunity to cultivate there. Guan descended the mountain alone, wandering aimlessly on the mountain. Because of the previous controversy over stealing herbs, Guan deliberately slowed down the pace of harvesting on Mortal World Peak. However, even so, with the constantly increasing production from the Outer World Cave, He was already able to amass nearly 4 million years of lifespan every year. His total lifespan had exceeded 400 million years. At this rate, Guan could also become rapidly stronger. Therefore he now tried to keep a low profile, taking fewer disciples and intervening less, to avoid accelerating the pace of the major changes in Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Walking along the mountain path, Guan's divine thought reached out to Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian was at the lowest-ranked sea peak, where Mortal World Peak had purposely allocated a sea area for disciples below the Immortal Path realm, and only those who had reached the Nirvana realm could pay tribute to divine peaks like Dingtian Peak. Years had passed, and Zhou Xian had become integrated into Mortal World Peak, with a low presence and her talents unknown to others, her life following the same routine as her previous days by Moonfall Divine Lake. Recently she had reached core formation, and within Mortal World Peak, she was essentially like a servant disciple, tending to the medicine garden, much like Guan had once been. Guan could sense the immense spiritual power contained within her. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body was like a black hole, quite challenging for even a free immortal to discern her physique. Once she fully released it, her cultivation level would skyrocket. In terms of physique, she was definitely the strongest Guan had ever seen in his time, with the ancient treasure body paling in comparison by several levels. At this moment, Zhou Xian was planting medicinal herbs. Even though she was alone in the garden, she conducted herself with utmost caution, appearing no different from an ordinary disciple. Guan watched for a while, then lost interest and retracted his gaze. He made some calculations. It was inevitable that Zhou Xian would eventually have a falling out with Mortal World Peak. Once her theft of the medicinal herbs came to light and led to a conflict with the disciples of Mortal World Peak, she would be expelled from the peak and might even be pursued and hunted. But that node was still very far away. Guan had no intention of stopping it. Along the way he foresaw that many disciples' fates would turn against Mortal World Peak. The reason for this was that there were simply too many disciples in Mortal World Peak, and it was implausible that all of them would remain from beginning to end. Even if he intervened early, as long as Mortal World Peak continued to take on disciples, such troubles would still arise. The deeper Guan delved into the research of cause and effect, fate and destiny, the more he could feel how terrifying destiny could be. Knowing and possessing the ability to change one's destiny is not necessarily a good thing. Because once changed, destiny introduces unpredictable variables, and those variables were beyond the control of the one who initiated the change. Only when a cause is present can one speculate the outcome. Without a beginning, it is impossible to calculate the result. Throughout the herb gathering process that followed, Guan kept observing the cause and effect of Dingtian Peak disciples, enhancing his understanding of the way of cause and effect. Night fell. Guan did not return to the Supreme Sect, choosing instead to stay on Dingtian Peak. He lay on a chair with the bright moon above and a book in his hands, thoroughly enjoying himself. An Xen was still cultivating nearby, her body emanating specks of light star, ethereal and otherworldly, as if she could ascend to immortality at any moment. The courtyard resounded with the chirping of insects, adding a touch of vitality to the garden. Suddenly, Guan looked up, only to see a shooting star streak across the night sky at an incredible speed. Usually such a shooting star signifies the arrival of a heaven and earth flying immortal. However, this time was different. Guan could feel that the other party's cultivation was far above that of heaven and earth flying immortal, likely a divine thought true immortal. Could it be that the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court are about to go to war again? Guan thought this to himself. The chief fortune of these two powers was too grand, capable of blocking cause and effect deductions. At least he was not yet able to comprehend it completely. He hoped for peace in the great heaven and earth, hoping the battle would wait 1,000 years or 10,000 years. By then he would be more confident in handling any catastrophe. It's time to establish a new medicine valley. Guan quietly contemplated as he had entertained such a thought for a while. He chose an underwater location for the next medicine valley. Eggs must not all be put in one basket. As the moon set and the sun rose, the next morning Guan sent an Xen back, then went alone to Immortal Seeking Island to exchange his own share of the island master's profits for a large quantity of medicinal herb seeds. He left this task to island master Sun Hanfeng. Sun Hanfeng did not question why Guan needed so many medicinal herbs. In the immortal cultivation world, the demand for medicinal herbs was no less than that for spirit stones. No one would complain about having too few herbs. The higher the realm, the greater the need for herbs. He only envied Gu En's capability. It was not until the evening that Sun Hanfeng handed over a high-level storage bag to Guan, filled with medicinal herbs. Night descended once again and Guan arrived at the largest sea area in Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Under the night sky, the waves rolled furiously, creating an oppressive atmosphere. The demon energy here was extremely dense, with only rare traces of the breath of cultivators of the human race. Guan flew into the sea, which was extremely deep. The deepest point lay more than 100,000 miles from the surface, and it concealed numerous demon creatures as terrifying as heaven and earth flying immortals. And there were even traces of the aura of the carefree primordial immortal. Since the great heavenly spirit land was controlled by the human race, the powerful demon creatures had no choice but to band together. They formed their own world within this sea, isolated from the rest of the world. As Guan descended some distance, the surroundings became pitch black and oppressive. Upon reaching 10,000 miles beneath the surface, a green light appeared below, resembling a boundless green ocean. He saw numerous tiny sea creatures that, although not yet possessing spiritual wisdom, were incredibly fast, comparable to cultivators in the core formation realm. After passing through this green sea, darkness returned. Continuing downward, from time to time he saw various lights, all emitted by demon creatures. Guan even saw several cave abodes situated on the mountainous bodies of the ocean. Further down he even saw a demon city radiating dazzling light, with countless demon creatures coming and going. In this way, Guan arrived at the depths of the seafloor without any demons noticing. He found a region with no demon activity and used his mana to demarcate a 100-mile radius on the sandy bottom. Then he created a clone. With the clone's great mana, he formed a barrier so that beings outside could not see inside it. His original self then began casting spells to create an environment suitable for the growth of medicinal herbs. The spiritual energy at the bottom of the sea was immense, enough for the herbs to thrive. After altering the environment, he began to construct an array. An ancient hour later, this undersea medicine valley had been sown with medicinal herb seeds. He didn't intend to keep demon creatures to guard this medicine valley. His clone would suffice in the future. Although the clone did not have independent thought, if there were any movement, it could still alert Guan in a timely manner. When the time came, Guan would project his consciousness onto the clone, which could use the clone's power to resolve any trouble. Even a free immortal would be no match for his clone. After making all preparations, Guan went to the edge of the medicine valley, took out a steel and planted it in the sand. Then using the fate-determining pen he wrote on the steel, "Hidden Spirit Palace." He called it a palace because he planned to build one there later, which could even serve as a dojo. Guan admired his own handwriting. It was truly becoming more elegant. He then vanished from the spot, returning to the Supreme Sect. The sea floor was silent. Outside the Hidden Spirit Palace was darkness, like an abyss. Occasionally, enormous figures like mountain ranges swam above the Hidden Spirit Palace, while Guan's clone meditated without opening its eyes. 15 years later. In early summer, Guan sat in the pavilion of Mystic Valley, admiring his attribute panel. He was very close to his 500 million year lifespan mark. The high-rank medical herbs of Outer World Cave would bring him a substantial increase in lifespan in the coming years, delighting his mood. Life was monotonous, but Guan did not find it dull. Watching his lifespan grow, he felt like he was leveling up in a game, a very fulfilling feeling. A knock came at the door and Guan said casually, "Come in." At his words, the door opened and Lu Jiujia entered. At 518, Lu Jiujia appeared to be just over 40, with a long beard that added to his imposing presence. He approached and gave a formal bow to Guan, saying, "Brother Gu, the Qin family's Medicine Valley has refused my terms. They continue to encroach on Mystic Valley's territory. What should be done?" Years had passed, and as the Supreme Sect grew stronger and remained uninvaded, more and more Medicine Valleys appeared outside the Outer Sect. Some were Medicine Valleys managed by the Supreme Sect, while others were cultivated by families to accumulate resources for their descendants. A Medicine Valley had sprung up around Mystic Valley, even larger in territory than Mystic Valley itself. The Qin family, a family that had risen to prominence in the last millennium, had elders in the Supreme Sect's inner sect city who held high status and great power. Having heard this, Guan responded, "No worries, I'll have an X and go there tomorrow. In no more than 3 days their medicine valley will vanish." Upon hearing this, Lu Jujia's face broke into a smile. He had no doubts about his brother's words. Brother Gus' influence was not small after all, and the Qin family was merely testing his bottom line. Otherwise they would have already tried to seize Mystic Valley. Guan looked up at Lu Jujia and asked, "How goes your cultivation lately?" Decades ago, Lu Jujia had broken the cultivation level restrictions of the innate reincarnation skill. With Gu An's secret guidance in the path enlightenment, his maximum lifespan had reached 700 years. But 700 years was not long. Lu Jujia's cultivation level had grown too slowly, currently only at the 9th layer of the core formation realm. Even if he released his cultivation again, it seemed unlikely he'd reach the divinity transformation realm. By all appearances, Lu Jujia had no hope of achieving nirvana in this life. Hearing the question, Lu Jujia scratched his head and said, "Honestly, brother, I feel increasingly powerless. When cultivating, I find my heart weary and my thoughts wandering." Guan replied, "There's nothing to be done then. You must find a way to overcome it." Lu Jujia could only nod. He felt helpless and ashamed. His brother had looked after him so much over the years, and he felt he had let his brother down. Changing the subject, he said, "Speaking of which, brother, a prodigy has appeared in the Medicine Valley recently. Would you like to meet him?" As he brought up the prodigy, his excitement surged. After managing the affairs of Mystic Valley for hundreds of years, this was the first time he had encountered such a genius. It made him proud to be associated.